Oh shoot, I always do that. Realize I am live. Oh hey, long time no see, man. Indeed, nice seeing you, man. Hopefully my audio and everything should be working. Hold on. I gotta raise my mic and lower this. It's weird, man. I have not sat in front of this and done something like this in a long time, man. Feels very weird, but oh, whoops. Got to mute my phone. But yeah, hey, what's up, everyone? Hey there. Still just getting everything dialed in and set up a little bit. It's been a minute since I got everything kind of turned on and put together. But yeah, how are you guys all doing? First of all, great seeing everyone here. I guess really quickly to start, been doing pretty well. Still out in Nevada myself. I just got very, because I'm not busy. I got not sidetracked, but I took another project on that. It was just like editing stuff, nothing big. But I thought I'd be done around like June, July-ish was kind of what I was looking at to be finished. And then I'm still like in the last phases of finishing it up right now. And then just some other stuff came up, and all of a sudden I look up, I'm like, oh my god, it's the end of 2021. I don't think I've done anything in this channel since what, like February, March, something like that? Maybe April? Maybe, I don't even remember. I haven't looked. But anyway, I have a lot to catch up on. I'm sure a lot of you guys got some stuff in your life to catch up on as well. So that's all very cool. But like honestly, I was looking through, and this weekend I was going to do some reading. I am so far behind on just the Andrew and everything. Like obviously, I kept up a little bit with the fact that he was, running for mayor and how that went, and then he lost. Definitely saw that. I knew he's starting. I pulled up right here the Forward Party. I still haven't read his new book yet, or fully gone through like we used to. I used to go through every single one of his things and see exactly what the verbiage is in here. Even though, of course, as we've seen, what you put in your website and what ends up being realistically possible tend to be two different things. But I thought that was cool. But first of all, something I wanted to talk about a little bit, and let me see if I can pull it. There we go. This is just part of it, but this is a guy I'm not super familiar. It's a blog or whatever, but I'm just highlighting this thing right here because one of the favorite things just in my last little bit of like, I don't know, like the last few days, I've kind of just like trying to get back into what's going on with Andrew Yang. I've realized Andrew has this immaculate ability to just certain types of people. He just makes them so angry at him. Like nothing he can do makes people happy. So I thought it'd be fun to go through, particularly this song Treat Thread. There's an article attached to it. Put it in the comments of just how Andrew Yang is apparently, because I definitely seen the people saying that Andrew Yang is going to like destroy the Democratic Party by making a third party. He's going to destroy America. He's going to destroy democracy. But I guess we'll start small with how Andrew Yang destroyed. Oh yeah, sorry guys. The background music I honestly just had on as like just something to play in the background when I was getting started. I always forget as soon as I click go live on my OBS, it just pushes out live right away in YouTube. I always feel like it takes a minute to kind of get out, but it doesn't. So that would just be kind of fun. I don't know what you guys. I just love going through people that are mad at Andrew Yang because it's always like, it's always like they're just mad at him because he didn't do what they want him to do, but they have to like twist it to like how he's bad. So that'd be fun to go through this thread as well as a couple other things. I don't know if you guys noticed, but the Jacobin, however you put it, the people named after French revolutionary communists, were not big fans of Andrew Yang's new attempt at a third party. But then all of a sudden, you come over to MSNBC, something a little bit more mainstream, and you see some of the same stuff. So again, Andrew's got this immaculate ability to just draw haters out no matter what he does. Doesn't mean he's perfect and makes no mistakes. It's always funny I don't know. I always feel like it's outsized. Andrew Yang will be like, you know what? I'm just going to run for mayor of New York. I'm from New York City. Why not run for mayor? I think I could win. And then it's not sure the nation's aware of how badly Andrew Yang destroyed the race for New York City mayor this year. It's like, wow. Huh. I think he just thought he lost, but I guess he destroyed the entire race with a no-effort vanity campaign. Sorry, in quotes. That's why I put the destroys in quotes on the topic. I mean, admittedly, I'm catching up on a little bit of some of the stuff as I'm going. I just find it hard to believe that Andrew Yang can't win elections. He's a loser, apparently, according to a lot of people. But then he's also apparently one of the most powerful forces in all of politics, bringing parties down single-handedly, bringing entire cities just down by himself with this overwhelming power. Yet these same people will mock him. Oh, you couldn't even win a primary. It's like, well, what is it? What is it? Can he not win a primary, or is he single-handedly destroying politics in America? Which one is it? Obviously, it's neither. But I don't know. Again, thought it'd be fun to go through with this, just kind of have some laughs because people, I don't know, man. People have to take it easy sometimes when it comes to some of this stuff. So we'll go through some of this stuff, and again, I'll read the front. I'm not sure the nation's aware of how badly Andrew Yang destroyed the race for New York City mayor this year. His bumbling, no-effort vanity campaign, again, wow, coming right out with all the adjectives, got all the media attention. So qualified candidates got no attention, and corrupt candidates got no vetting. Then Yang imploded. Now, what's weird about this is if I recall, we're looking at, a few weeks to the actual mayoral election over here in New York City, and Eric Adams, I mean, I guess he wasn't the front runner the whole time, but as far as I understood, this wasn't like a crazy result, right? Like Andrew Yang, I guess people thought would win, but after that, yeah, it was, what was it? Eric Adams, Maya Wiley got a lot of press. She never got a lot of polling, from what I remember. I don't want to relitigate the whole thing, but and someone asked about Cardin. Sorry, yeah, Cardin, I actually believe this weekend is out of town on vacation, but he's also still in California, and I am still over here in Nevada. I do like once he gets back, though. I do, and kind of one of the reasons why I'm doing some stuff like this, just kind of getting back in the swing of things, getting used to it again. I want to start doing some like Zoom stuff with Cardin again, because there's no reason why we can't do it. Get the old studio back in here, and it would take like 2 seconds. I just got to get him to sit still. It's hard for me to get Cardin to sit still when I'm not physically there to sit him still. You know what I mean? When I have to just kind of like call him and hope he's there. But anyway. Any other questions? Please let me know, guys. I'll feel free to answer any of them. But I just want to go through this thing because this is a long tweet thread. And again, I did not follow Andrew Yang's campaign like extremely closely. I didn't follow it beat by beat, and I wasn't there for every minute, every day of it. But I just kind of feel like some of this stuff. Here we go. We'll get to the good stuff, right? So by the time everyone figured out Yang wasn't going to win, it was too late for qualified, experienced candidates like Garcia, Stringer, and Wiley to get traction. Once Eric Adams pulled into the lead last minute, all kinds of scandals surfaced about him, but didn't get covered. One of my favorite things about this, too, though, is always this idea that voters have zero agency, That voters are just kind of like there's always people in the media that write about people that go and vote as if they're like, how to put this, like characters in a story, you know what I mean? Like, they have literally no say in any of this. They don't have eyes, they don't have ears, they're just like, well, I don't know, I voted Eric Adams. Oh, no, I'm sure people knew some of this stuff about the guy, and from what I've heard about the corruption of Eric Adams, yeah, it's basically the corruption you would expect from any, what's the word they use for it? Qualified, experienced candidates tend to have a lot of corruption in their background, but anyway, we'll go through the 15-tweet mad thread. And so Eric Adams accidentally won, even though the vast majority of people voted for someone else. Oh, and then we're going to get into the next part of this, which I think is also one of the things that makes Andrew Yang mad, people mad at Andrew Yang with the Forward Party, which is he is kind of coming for a lot of people's jobs, which is another reason why I wanted to kind of go through this thread, because I think it sums up a little bit of why people are so threatened and angry at Andrew Yang, is the fact that he isn't quite interested in playing the game, he isn't quite interested in maintaining the status quo, I guess is a good way of putting it. He's not like a revolutionary, but he just has no problem to... Is the music still on? Hold on. No, hopefully that's just a stream delay. It should be muted, but I'm just going to close the window anyway. There we go. And also, please let me know any sound stuff. Another part of the reason why I'm doing this again, I have to make sure all my settings are all dialed in, so I kind of want to go back and listen to this after the fact. Sorry, I got lost. But anyway, though. Again, blame the media for having a job to do and not doing it, but the media always like this. Andrew Yang knew full well he was sabotaging the Democratic primary race by hogging all the attention for what turned out to not even be a real campaign on his part. Right after Yang lost, he came out with a book attacking the Democrats, quitting the party, and starting his own third party. Does this sound like a guy who had any intention of really trying to win a Democratic primary for mayor when he started writing this anti-Democrat book? So that was kind of mostly what I want to get into. Like I said, it keeps going on and on and on. But I think it's really interesting, these kind of particular lines of attack against Yang. Lines of attack. I wasn't defending him. But it is very interesting how threatening it is to people that Andrew Yang's talking about a couple things, right? The little I know about the Forward Party, term limits. I think term limits on the bill, right? He wants people out of politics forever. He doesn't want people in politics forever. Now, when you kind of think about that, let's see, do I have it pulled up? Here we go. I'm going to play this TikTok with muted in the background. I just want you to check this out. But he brings some numbers up here. Let me resize so you guys can see it. Average member of Congress are 58.8 years old. Average senator is 64. And House leadership is 81 years old. House leadership is 81 years old. Anyone want to tell me what's another way you could say House leadership is 81 years old? Because I think that's like, I think House leadership's a person, right? House leadership isn't like it's not a book. It's not a computer. It's not a station wagon. I think it's a human being over there. And same with these people. And when you basically start your party coming out directly calling out, and I'm going to guess, but I'm assuming Nancy Pelosi is 81 years old. Oh, yeah, because she's the House leadership. And I think this is really, really, really fascinating about Andrew Yang coming out with this third party. Andrew Yang coming out and saying, I'm done. I'm not a Democrat anymore. I'm done with the Democrats. I believe Andrew Yang said in an interview, even if he won the primary, he was going to immediately resign from the Democratic Party and basically govern as an independent. I think was the gist of what he said. Which, I mean, bold move, right? That's one of those things. I really don't know if I believe him on that one, right? That might be something, who knows, right? Who knows? People surprise themselves sometimes with the decisions they make. But it is really interesting that basically Andrew Yang is coming out and basically saying, we need to replace Nancy Pelosi, average senator, 64.3 years old. Who's on the high end of that? Would it be Mitch McConnell? He's basically saying, we need to replace the most powerful people in Washington. And while, not everyone is going to be this Palmer Report guy writing these super long tweet threads, you're going to see a lot of this, though. People are not going to be happy to hear this. That Andrew Yang's like, I don't really consider myself a Democrat, and I actually think that a lot of the most powerful politicians in Washington shouldn't have their job anymore because they're old and incompetent. Seems to be his general premise he's coming from. And so, the favorite bill, this MSNBC article wasn't great, but MSNBC, I think during Andrew Yang's campaign and stuff, they've never been very nice to him. I saw CNN gave him a pretty good bit when they were covering the Forward Party. But seriously, I have to imagine anyone that has anything at all that is aligned with any kind of, a current political power, any power structure government right now basically relies on both parties functioning as is. They're both threatened by this. And I'm expecting to see nothing for months but a torrent of Andrew Yang is actually the worst person ever articles. I don't think a lot of them are going to be deserved. But again, I thought it was a bit interesting that, I kind of expect it from, publications like Jacobin because then, they definitely aren't for people who aren't for the cause, I guess you could say. Even if they're for equal, a cause that has maybe equal validity. If it's not the cause, I ain't having it. But this is pretty big dunk from MSNBC, and then you see, people writing stuff like this. But I guess a couple of the things I wanted to ask you guys, though, before we because again, I'm still catching up on a lot of this. I'm just going through and generally cursing over this stuff and saying, because I pulled this up, there's a lot of other random people. I haven't loosely following Andrew Yang stuff going on, and it's I'll just see a tweet thread show up in my Twitter thread of people just bashing Andrew Yang, calling him all kinds of awful names, and I was trying to figure out why. And I really don't see it getting any better because he's not. I guess he's done kind of holding his tongue a bit, and now he's picking some fights with important and big, serious people. I don't have all the quotes pulled up in front of me, but I'm sure some of you guys have seen it. Again, I love as this guy describes it, his anti-Democrat book, which is it is a really great way. It is a great way to put it, right? The anti-Democrat book, because I guess from a certain perspective, anything that isn't furthering the Democratic Party, I guess, could be considered anti to them. But yeah, I don't know. Sorry, I'm still getting back into things a little bit. I haven't done this in a while. Trying to catch up with all the Andrew Yang stuff. But I really do wonder, the number one thing from this, though, is just kind of what allies he'll make. Because there's people who honestly have been, pretty friendly and favorable to Andrew Yang. I think one of the big ones to look at, let me see if I can actually pull this up real quick. I don't have my camera set up. But I believe CNN basically ran a Andrew Yang Humanity Forward Party press release in the middle of one of their news segments where they just kind of said his slogans and said how great the party was going to be, which does seem to be the MO of CNN. They will circle the wagons for their employees always. Sorry, I'm trying to look up this article and I'm just pulled up. But that's the first domino I'd be interested to kind of watch because Andrew Yang is, he's the CNN, what's the word? Alum, I guess, right? But I can't imagine them to keep running stuff like this. Just about, Andrew Yang, he's leaving the Democrat. Even then, the unsuccessfully self-2020 presidential nominee. And Monday, he's breaking up with the Democratic Party and registering as an independent. But I would imagine to start seeing a lot more stuff from CNN with the same tenors we're seeing from MSNBC and more here, because it really is kind of a I don't want to say lose-lose, but it really isn't the kind of thing that you can just come out with and say, oh yeah, I'm starting a new party and it's basically built around getting people like Nancy Pelosi out of government. That sounds great to me. I'm sure a lot of you guys in chat are like, that sounds awesome. A party basically built around making sure we don't live under Nancy Pelosi's, and not her in particular, I mean 81-year-old career politicians who honestly don't seem to be that popular anywhere, even in their own districts sometimes. They just govern over us. But at the same time, they didn't fall out of the sky one day. Like, Nancy Pelosi is at 81 years old and the Speaker of the House, I think for the second or third time, like the most ever anyone's ever been, because she's just stupid and lucky. I mean, there's obviously stuff going on there. Oh, you hate him, man. You hate him. Well, yeah, I don't know what to say. If you hate him, you hate him, you know? Ever since he sided with Israel, which, gotta admit, personally, one of those things, don't understand, but hey, if you hate him, you hate him. I don't know what to say about that. I guess I got good news. If you hate Andrew Yang, all you have to do is read the mainstream media for the next 6 months, and they will just give you even more reasons to hate him. So there you go. You'll have a lot of fun with that. But I actually kind of wonder if you guys in chat, you guys' opinion on this. Obviously, we have one person who's not happy with Andrew Yang. I do wonder what your opinion is about him leaving the Democrats and starting his own party, right? If he was more, let's just say, Israel neutral, Israel-Palestine neutral, he just kind of stayed out of it. I wonder what your opinion would be. But first of all, I wonder how, it seems to me, I have not read through the book yet, no. I've been trying to get a copy for me and Cardin. Like, seriously, this weekend, like right now, this is me kind of catching up for the first time. I've been kind of a little bit just busy, and then on top of it, just kind of other stuff came up, and then on top of it, I, admittedly kind of had a bit, wasn't quite so interested in keeping up with politics there for a while. It seemed like for a while it was kind of like, like watching the same train crash every day. It's like, I gotta admit, I've kind of had my fill of this train crash, man. I've seen it. It goes off the rails about here, and then this happens, and then everyone forgets about it, and it happens again. So I'm kind of done dealing with this. But just kind of working back into it now. I'm kind of interested in what the general... I've noticed that obviously there was a bit of a split initially when Andrew Yang did this. I mean, the split seems to be, again, there's that kind of like knee-jerk reaction from a lot of people, which I understand. I mean, you see stuff like this. Andrew Yang is breaking up with the Democratic Party and basically comes out and says some not-so-great things about the Democrats. And yeah, launching a third party that's saying we want anyone to, if you're a third party, you can't turn anyone away, which means A, he's going to be quote unquote stealing Democrat votes, and B, he's going to be basically, fraternizing with the enemy. So yeah, it's not going to make a whole lot of people very happy. But I do wonder if he does have something that tells him he has the support structure he's going to need for this. Because I imagine this is going to require a larger support structure than just financing or money, because you're stepping on some pretty big toes. I mean, he basically just he made a TikTok video where he kind of dances around saying Nancy Pelosi needs to be out of government. The Speaker of the House doesn't need to be in government anymore. I mean, she doesn't understand technology and the changes that are happening around us. So that's kind of the read between the lines on this, right? Right? Like, nobody likes this kind of stuff. We have people that are too old. And again, I agree with him on all this, by the way. I love this. But, I mean, I guess... I've always kind of represented the maybe a different wing of Andrew Yang fans, where it's like I didn't really come in to be any kind of political party. I actually like the fact that he was kind of looking at politics as like he was kind of taking a little bit of like, I don't want to say an entrepreneurial or a business approach, but sometimes when you're not in super ideologically dominated worlds like business can be sometimes, you'll look at a problem and just be like, what the hell is this? Like, let's just get it done. And someone will be like, yeah, but we might have to do this. And it's like, who cares if we have to do this? It's like, yeah, but we've always done things this way. Who cares if we've always done things this way? But in politics, that's like, what do you mean? Like, I deeply care we've always done things this way. I deeply care that's the way things have been here. That's the status. We're not going to just screw with that. But, when you're coming from the outside, when you don't have some like weird like ideological or self-worth attachment to like the party, and it's just like, well, can we get this problem solved for people? You become a big threat to people who are like, well, things have to be solved this way. And even if it doesn't work, we have to make it work. And it's kind of like just these two really, conflicting ideologies. But again, it's... I can't imagine it's any easier to step on the outside and start doing the same stuff. Just start saying, hey, these people are like old and incompetent, and they kind of like just get there and stay there. I mean, the Democratic Party in particular, say whatever you want about the two parties, but the Democratic Party in particular has an issue with seniority dominates when it comes to leadership positions, when it comes to, who gets like the nice spots on the different things. They just do it seniority based. Whoever's been here the longest and the oldest. The Republicans will at least try to put young blood in these positions. They'll say, like, what was it? I almost said Paul Allen. What was his name? Paul Ryan, right? Was Speaker of the House. He was the, oh my God, I'm blanking on the title. But when he was in the Senate and the Republicans dominated the Senate, he was basically the Mitch McConnell. I don't know, the Senate Majority Leader. I don't know why I couldn't think about that. And then he ran for president and got blown out. He had that weird goofy picture where he was doing the bicep curls, right? With like the 8-year-old baseball hat on him. But still, like, they at least would try that. Democrats, no way, man. If you're not on like 40 pills for all these conditions you've had for 20 years and you're not in your 80s, they don't want you looking at these positions. They're like, dude, you got to sell your soul on Capitol Hill for 45 years to get where I am. You don't get to just get where I am because it might help us right now. No. You got to do what I did. You got to pay your dues. And stuff like that just, it doesn't help anyone. It just pulls everything back and makes everything slower and everything worse for everyone. But, I'm not trying to, blame and flame everybody in the government here. But, yeah, like realistically, a lot of people in government aren't that preoccupied with making things better and helping people. They're a lot more preoccupied with kind of getting their ideological points across in any way possible. Which gets me to another thing I kind of want to talk about a little bit with Andrew Yang. I thought this was a very interesting tweet for him to come out with now that he's, not out of politics, but now that he's off ballots. I think that's the big thing. No matter who you are, no matter how hard you try to say, like, I'm never going to sell out, I'm never going to act different. I have to imagine when your name's going to be on a ballot, you probably wake up differently. You know what I mean? When you're getting your coffee or your tea in the morning, you probably are like subconsciously like, do I look like it? Just there has to be something in your head because if there isn't, I mean, it's got to be hard to win anything if you just kind of live your life like, nothing's changed. I'm going through anything. But now that Andrew is out of like the actual races, we're seeing him talk about stuff like this. Interesting, talking about the Civil War, polarization, pulling people to civil war, and kind of plugging the Forward Party as this. And again, bringing the data and the math. I believe this is from his book, which I will say from reading The War of Normal People, he does do something as I don't know if he has an editor that helps him with this or whatever, but he's very effective at kind of using some, what's the word? Not like flowery language, but using, like kind of setting the scene and then really hammering it home with the graphs and numbers. I remember he did that when I was reading The War of Normal People when he's talking about the amount of stockbrokers that are in the different exchanges. Just like, he's like, all kinds of jobs are being lost to automation. For example, there's like 8% of the stockbrokers that used to be on the floor. It's like, oh, that's a big one. But this is interesting to see him just kind of openly talking about the fact that we're getting too polarized and plugging his party. Basically, what I'm trying to kind of indicate to here is that definitely seems to be, I don't know, not even an unofficial, like part of what the Forward Party is about is like literally like a response to the polarization we're seeing. Which I think, honestly, of everything he's doing, like the brass tack stuff, the actual things you could put on the books, right? You can't pass a law that depolarizes us. It doesn't make any sense. You can implement term limits. You can implement ranked choice voting. You can actually do things, right? But I have to imagine a lot of that stuff he's talking about is more, it's less ranked choice voting must happen because it's the most just thing. And it does feel like it's more like ranked choice voting needs to happen to deal with polarization, right? It almost seems like this entire third party, Forward Party movement is a response to the polarization we're seeing, which if that does kind of tend to be the way he goes more and more with it. And again, I'm going to read through his book, go through more of all this stuff because I am a little bit behind, but just kind of what I've seen glancing at this stuff. I mean, like here, let's just look at like the bullet points here. Make sure you guys can read what I'm reading, but ranked choice voting and open primaries, fact-based governance, which I have to say, I don't like the verbiage of fact-based governance. What the hell does that mean? I like the subtext that legislation should be judged on outcomes, not ideologies. Again, getting to the cutting through polarization, cutting through the divide kind of stuff, And then he puts in the human-centered capitalism. Grace and tolerance as like a part of a party, I think is not hilarious in like a, what's the word I'm looking for? The better way to kind of phrase this. I guess you could say it's really telling of where things actually are, right? That being effective and modern and then operating with grace and tolerance is kind of like, that has to be a third party, right? Effective and modern government and grace and tolerance and fact-based governance literally cannot exist in the other two parties. And they're not going to come out and say it. They're not going to say we're the party of inefficient, bloated, dated bureaucratic government that is completely intolerant with no grace and basically is 100% ideologically driven. But I mean, that really is how you can describe both the Republican and Democratic Party. They legislate almost purely in ideology, not outcome. They operate with no grace, no tolerance, and they're extremely ineffective and dated. Like, yeah, that describes both of those parties, like, to a T. But at the same time, I guess kind of it's almost a little bit like that scene in Batman, right? Where you start describing these parties a little bit, and it's like, so let me get this straight. You're going up against two gigantic, like, this point, like, multi-hundred-year institutions that are completely unscrupulous, are completely intolerant of anybody outside of them, and are driven only by ideology, and your plan is to combat that with a third party that just has open, like you see what I mean? Like, at a certain point, it does kind of sound like, yeah, those two parties do need to be broken up, but also, I don't know if it can be broken up by just, Andrew Yang kind of making his own third party and going out on a limb. Now, I'm assuming he's hoping to start something of a trend. Honestly, the best thing for Andrew Yang, the best thing for the Forward Party, is some kind of counterparty to rise up. Because it's probably going to be harder to get, sister parties to rise up, or parties that agree with them, other third parties that are on the same side. But, I mean, if you can find a way to piss off the right people and get a anti-Forward Party third party, oh my god, excuse me, that's actually how you get no third party in the mix. And that's all that matters. You just need to get people at the table, right? Let's say no one ever wins one election for the Forward Party, but in response to the Forward Parties, you see other third parties pop up that just vow to, caucus with Democrats, like Bernie Sanders, who get elected to places. But then what if one of them wins, and all of a sudden they're getting sworn in or whatever, and they're like, I mean, I know we made kind of like a backroom deal to caucus with Democrats, but we're not actually them. We are our own party. What if we do just go out on our own, right? So that's my kind of initial guess right now. I think that's going to be maybe where the Forward Party and Andrew Yang's kind of attempts to break through this duopoly is going to have the most, what's the word, effect, is he's going to have to kind of motivate people emotionally into doing something, right? And if all he can do is emotionally motivate people into countering him with other parties, countering him with other stuff, that'll be the best way to do it. But, because it's, as we've kind of gone through and talked about, he's pissing off the most powerful people in the government with a move like this. I can't imagine it's just going to immediately take off, and it's probably going to, be something that more is the start of a larger thing than the thing itself. But I still have more to go into. Might be different, might see different stuff, but I mean, you can just see the disdain. I want to go through again. Because, again, ranked choice voting and open primaries is the number one listed core value, right? And I just want to, where do we go? The way that this guy who wrote this long thing about how much he hates Andrew Yang, the way he described ranked choice voting, it just was such disdain, right? This candidate, I'm trying to find the right, but basically described it as a candidate that didn't even get most of the votes. People didn't even want this guy. That is the way that, people that are kind of, I don't know, old school, people that are used to politics the way it is, people that love the duopoly, that's what they see when they see ranked choice voting. What? Look at this person didn't even get all the vote, and they just go on these weird tangents because honestly, they just look at it as that doesn't help me win. And if it doesn't help me win, I don't want it. Because yeah, who ranked choice voting doesn't help win? Is people that are basically going to just suck up to either one of the parties you have to and wherever you live and just do what they say. Because, depending on what state or county you're in, if you just make the big-time local Democrat or Republican happy, you probably got a much better chance of winning local elections than if you don't, right? The ranked choice voting helps the people that aren't making the backroom deals, the nudge-nudge, the wink-winks. It's helping the people that aren't, saying one thing but going to do another and the right people kind of know. Those people hate ranked choice voting. They're like, nah, dude. Where's the 4 bribes I have to take? I want to just take the couple bribes I need. I don't want to be in a position where I can lose even after doing that. I want to be in a position where I sell my soul and I win. That's what I sold my soul for, right? Just to be, a little bit hyperbolic. That's what they want. They don't want this system where, people from third parties can win. Because that kind of threatens everything. It threatens both parties, one, having any third party threatens, but two, it threatens their ability to recruit talent. And sometimes recruiting talent is finding people that will take bribes and bribing them. But if there is a third option, if there is another option that isn't, kind of this modern corruption style politics we have, because it really, like, there's so many people with so many interests. You'll notice very few people just step on everyone's toes, piss everyone off, flaunt, go against what these big, massive companies and whoever the big influences in the area are, and then just win and stay in office and not be smeared in the media and not have millions. I mean, you look at these elections. I mean, midterms are coming up, and honestly, probably one of my favorite things is who donates to congressional candidates. Most people don't get a lot of donations realistically for their congressional campaigns, and they're mostly all local. It's a lot of money in the context of if it was dropped in your bank account tomorrow, but not a lot of money in the context of running for Congress. A lot of them. But then there'll be a few races where it's millions of dollars will just come flying in from the entire country on them. And it's maybe it's because maybe the math says those districts can win, maybe X, maybe Y. I wonder how much of it is just getting on the wrong side of the wrong people, right? I remember when I used to live in California, we used to live, when I was doing the show with Cardin in California, the 25th District of California, which is one of the weirdest congressional districts over the past 5 or 6 years, which is funny. It was a very stable congressional district for a while. It was basically the same people were in power forever. That shook up when I believe there was a death anyway. Then, I don't know if you guys heard, I'm sure a lot of you heard, there was a story with the California Congresswoman Katie Hill, who allegedly was having relations with employees, and honestly, who even knows the whole width of the story? That was our congressperson. And so the election to replace her got absolutely ridiculous. I believe we had, if you guys heard of that one, Cenk Uygur, I believe is how you pronounce his name, founder of the Young Turks, when he ran for Congress, that was the seat he was running for. And at the time of, I think, when Katie Hill was initially running and after that, the amount of money that was coming into that district, there wasn't people that lived in the 25th district donating to these people. That was a little bit of it. But no, this became a national thing. This became a pet project. This became something where they're trying to get money from people in Delaware and Massachusetts, and they were. Bloomberg himself dumped money into that race. And so coming up and probably honestly starting now, right? Midterms are months from now. I mean, about a year-ish, right? But this isn't 3-4 years away. This is coming up very soon. We're going to start seeing it, and you have to wonder, how do they figure out who is really going to get the eye? Who's really going to get the money put against them? Because there's a lot of moderate districts all across the country that you think maybe can go either way, right? It's not just one here and one there. There's a lot of them all across the country. So, I don't know, bit of a tangent. I guess I haven't gone on a tangent in a while. I haven't gone on a rant in a while. But it's just, you can kind of see when that's going on, what's actually happening behind the scenes. Kind of where this is actually going, how politics actually works. Because, I mean, I'm not trying to say this is that, politics is, these people are, evil. But it's just, you look at this thing. And I make the example, dude, how could anybody be the general manager of an Arby's if they were going to have the things above them and beneath them change randomly all the time, kind of out of their control? Think about that. You might want to plan a little in advance. It's oh, you can't do that. It's well, why? It's oh, well, because in 18 months you might just be gone. So you have to run everything like you're going to be gone in 18 months. It's what? That's not, you can't do things that way. It's not possible. It's one of the problems with term limits. It doesn't get brought up is that everyone is going to be doing short-term legislating. Everyone's going to be legislating there's no tomorrow. My name's not going back on a ballot, man. This is it. So it's, I definitely agree we need to have some way to get new talent in, but it's one of the reasons why term limits as a fix does kind of concern me, because it puts an expiration date on basically how long you have to actually pretend to care about what your constituency wants. And even if you do care, it gives you a point where you don't have to anymore. It gives you that point where you could just be all right, man, I won my election. This is it. So you do it in the Senate for the next I don't know, for the full 6 years, you know, but like for the next, you know, long portion of my final term here, I'm going to kind of maybe take some deals. Maybe I'm going to start thinking about my future outside of government. And maybe the best way to think of my future outside of government is to make relationships with some people that can give me a job when I get out of government. Maybe I can make some relationships by, you know, easing tax burdens on some people. And then maybe they'll give me a job. Like, it's one of the downsides of it. The goal is good, right? The goal of not having Nancy Pelosi be 81 years old, Speaker of the House for the second or third time. Top of my head, I forget which one. Either way, it's very impressive, but shows she knows people. Like, how do you get new people into politics so we can actually kind of progress, like what's the word? In games, you know? I guess more video games. It applies to sports, too. There's a sort of meta game that gets formed, the game within the game. There's the rules, and then there's the most efficient way to operate within the rules, right? And the most efficient way to operate within the rules isn't necessarily written down somewhere. You have to kind of just figure it out. Just by kind of, you know, playing the game. You figure out, oh, so if I do this, that, you know, this works. This is good. And I wonder what that kind of, you know, meta game will form around term limits, around knowing you have an expiration date. Because it affects everything. It's going to start in a lot of different ways, kind of changing the way, it's going to change the way lobbyists lobby. You know what I mean? It's going to change the way people run campaigns. You know, re-election like the entire concept of re-election changes, and how re-election and how the idea of having your name on a ballot, and then one day knowing my name is never on a ballot again, but I'm still in office. Like, that's weird. And yeah, I'm not going to have all the answers to it, but I do think it's something that's interesting to be addressed. It's why I think, you know, ranked choice voting, or just more specifically, right? I think Andrew specifically says ranked choice voting and open primaries, right? But more specifically, just a revision to the way our voting system works. I think that's probably a good step in the right direction, right? Some kind of revision or adjustment. But that's never going to happen because, as we've, you know, not established, but the reality is we have two main parties in this country, right? And the Democrats are only going to want to change voting rules if it helps Democrats win. And the Republicans are only going to want to change voting rules if it helps Republicans win. Imagine going Democrats and Republicans and saying, hey, I need your help to change the rules. And when we change the rules, honestly, it's going to have a neutral to negative effect on you, probably. It might have a positive. Odds are it won't. Odds are it's going to make it harder for you to win, or the same. And they're just going to be like, no, why would I ever do that? Why would I ever help you make it harder for me to win? It doesn't make any sense. And that's, I think, a very tough bridge. I don't know how you get across that. Some of the stuff the Andrew's putting for, I mean, fact-based governance, unfortunately, is what everyone's trying to push. But just the idea, I don't like the verbiage there. I'm not going to get too hung up on it. But I do think, yeah, the idea that outcome-based legislation, non-ideological-based legislation, the major problem I see with that, unfortunately, is outcomes don't motivate voters, apparently. Ideology does, right? And that's not even like voters, but like outcomes don't motivate people the same way ideology doesn't anything. I mean, like, there's a lot of stuff that people like ideologically don't like, and they know if they do it, the outcome will be preferable. But for ideological reasons, they don't want to do it. Like, that's you know, that's kind of just a fact there. I don't really understand a way around that, unfortunately. Like, the reason why we have such ideological driven everything is because it gets people out. It gets people to do something. Right? Like, people aren't going to vote for slight improvements. Losers don't want a fair fight, man. If there's anyone who doesn't want a fair fight, it's a loser. They want the most unfair rigged game ever so they can win. They don't care. They're losers. They just want to win. Just rig it to help me. It's like, well, no, we're going to make it more fair. I don't want to make it more fair. I want to make it better for me. More fair helps me lose. Right? I'm a loser. I can't compete in an even field. I mean, like there's people who lose, and then there's losers. I would say losers is more of like an internalized thing, right? There's people who go out there and they compete and they lose, right? They compete and they fail. They try and they fail. And they go out there and they try again. There's people then who internalize being a loser. Like, oh, I always lose. So how do I game the system to win even when I'm losing? How do I make it so even though I'm a loser, I can get away with this? And the way you do it, making the rules unfair. It's like the thing you notice is the people that have absolutely no qualms at all at winning at any cost, doing what by any means necessary, at any cost. I will pay any, whatever it takes. Those are generally people who don't win a lot because then they never have to pay that cost, right? It's one thing to say, I'll pay whatever cost it takes. I'll do whatever it takes, right? But it's another thing. It's like, okay, fine, you won, and now you have to pay that toll. But those things you said you would do, now you have to do them. You won. All right? Then it's a problem. It's like people who win think about that. People who actually do get elected and get into, they have to think about, like, well, I mean, eventually I'm elected, eventually I have to have these considerations. Cardin's not confirmed Cardin's demise. Cardin is doing great. He's actually on vacation with his family. And I guess, for anyone joining, I'm still in Nevada. Cardin's still in California. Once Cardin is back in California, it was hard enough for me to get him to sit still when we were, literally a mile away from each other, and I was at his house every single day. But yes, I want to get him on a Zoom call, and I want to get into some classic stuff, especially because we've been texting a little bit about this. Andrew Yang's forward party, some of the stuff he's doing. And as you can see, even I have honestly had very little to talk about in politics for a while. I've had very little to say. I just kind of been seeing a lot of stuff and kind of groaning, I guess you could say. Kind of just a massive grin on my face is basically my reaction to all of politics. But this was the first thing I heard of a little bit in a while that I was kind of like, I think this is interesting. I think this is neat. I think this is a push in the right direction. Again, especially because it really does apparently feel like a response to, I think the Civil War stuff's kind of, I think using the word Civil War in America is tough because we had the American Civil War, which is not only the most famous civil war in America, very unique thing, But at the same time, I would say going back to the election between Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton, it became very clear that this country had two massively powerful, completely divided ideological parties that were fighting for control. They both party views the other party as entirely illegitimate. They think they have no right to rule. They think that they have no actual right, no moral right, no governmental right. They think they have no right to exist. And the fact that they do exist is like it's like being put upon the entire nation. That seems to be the opinion of both the Republican and Democratic Party of each other, going back to, from when I really remember seeing it every single day, nonstop, about 2015, 2016 it started. Where it was there's a term I've heard used in British Parliament where they would refer, I think loyal opposition would be a way they would refer to the minority party, right? Whatever party wasn't in power, or loyal opposition. Idea being, it's like they oppose us, but we are still both, part of the same government. There is definitely, and even though they say that, they probably hate, actually I do know for a fact that there's definitely animosity as well in England, but still it's the idea that even the decorum of that is gone. You know what I mean? America's heading a lot closer towards I don't want to be rude, but you see some more I don't want to say developing nations, but you see some other younger democracies, and you see videos of their senates and their congresses, people throwing chairs and clubbing each other. America's edging way closer to that than it is, a bunch of people, a bunch of stuffy suits sitting up going, oh, well, I say, we are so far away from that, and we are so much closer to people literally WWE style hitting chairs on people's heads in the middle of congressional meetings. Because it's just a fight that never ends. It's a fight that every single day just starts up again, over and over and over again. There isn't even that point where, because obviously Democrats and Republicans didn't just agree on everything forever, so there's two parties. But it felt I don't want to say it felt like, I wasn't alive for all of it, but the historical record seems to point closer towards they kind of fight, and then there's I don't want to say a reconcile, but you come together, some kind of, concessions are made, they try to govern together for a while, and then they fight again. But it feels like the last 6 years now, it's just a fight that it's just every day. And it's to the point now where it's what they're fighting over doesn't matter anymore. And it's spilled over to just regular people, right? It's just spilling over to random people on social. Seriously, I have not posted on Twitter in, I don't know, 8 months, something like that. And it's because I see things on that website. Just they're shocking. I can't believe some of the stuff I read. And I'm just excuse me? You're talking about just regular people you live with. And I'm not, I still follow it, I monitor it, I try to keep up with stuff, but it's, one thing I saw that really concerned me, I don't want to get too into it, was the idea that there's people that were just kind of talking like, yeah, people who aren't vaccinated, like they just shouldn't get medical attention. They just shouldn't be in the ICU because they're taking up space. And it's like just one of the most like, I don't know, just hearing it to me, it's like a weird, heartless kind of like viewing your neighbors as literally just like numbers on a piece of paper. Where it's just like, yeah, those are the bad numbers. You can just cross them out, man. We don't need them. Because, like, I'm pretty sure if somebody drank an entire handle of whiskey and then Dukes of Hazzard style jumped their car into a school bus, we would drag that person out of the wreckage, drive them to a hospital, and attempt to save their life. Because it's not up to us to decide whose life is worth saving. But it's just, we've got to a point where everything is so split. It is just so ideologically, it's such a fight every day. That, yeah, no, they're just numbers on paper. They're just votes for the opposition at this point. They're just people who aren't doing things they should be doing. And it's kind of driving towards, this status where both parties are convinced the other party's illegitimate. And it's it's one thing to say you're wrong. It's one thing to say, I think your tax rates will only put an undue burden on this group of people while at the same time not helping this group. Right? Like it's not even close to where we're at anymore. Now it's, you are morally illegitimate to exist as a political entity. Is where we're at, right? Like, you shouldn't exist. Your party shouldn't exist. Your ideas shouldn't exist. And people who believe in what you believe in shouldn't exist in society. And it's like, that's not a government anymore. I don't know what that is, to be honest. It's just like two warring factions trying to desperately keep as much control as they can. And it's bad for all of us. But also, getting back to, another one of these topics here, again, the idea of legislating without, having outcome-based legislation, not ideological-based legislation, just legitimately isn't popular, I don't think. I want it. I agree with it. I'm the kind of person where, like, legitimately, if you come to me and say, hey, this thing that, like, these things that you thought, these ideas, your ideologies, they're wrong, and they will not get you the outcomes you want, I have no problem with it. Okay, cool. I want the outcomes. I don't want the ideological supremacy. I want the outcomes. But, it seems like for a lot of people, they want the ideological supremacy. They don't want the outcomes. Things can get worse for all they care, as long as their ideology reigns supreme. That's all that matters. And it's foolish. It's the way you get burned by politicians forever. Because they literally have to deliver nothing. All they have to deliver is this, they have to just claim that, no, I'm moving forward our ideological position. Okay, are the outcomes anywhere? No. Is anything getting better? No. Are things getting worse in ways we can measure? Maybe. But who cares? Who cares? I need to prove I'm right. And you prove you're right by ideologically dominating opposition. It's like, some of this stuff, like, and listen, people are talking about, it's like, what is this nonsense? Like, does anybody care about what's actually going on at the end of the day, right? It's kind of like almost in a way, like you hear kind of like the, it's like the trope of like the parents that are fighting with each other over how to raise the child. And neither one of their ideas are going to help the child, but they don't care. Even when it becomes clear, it's like the kid doesn't want this. It makes them unhappy. Doesn't matter. I'm right. It's like, what? Like, this is, at a certain point, you have to take a step back and go, yeah, wait a minute. I'm supposed to be serving people, supposed to be helping people, supposed to be making things better. I'm not supposed to just be right. But honestly, I don't. I'm gonna get a little bit kind of, I don't want to say tin hat. It's not like conspiracy theory stuff. But I do wonder if for some people, they actually get more out of their, like, in their day-to-day life. Their day-to-day life, from their perspective, is better knowing that they're on the quote-unquote winning team than maybe it would be if they did have slightly better actual measurable outcomes in their life. Just the emotional, the moral, the self-esteem boost of being on the right side of history or whatever outweighs whatever, minor inconveniences that poor governance might be putting on their life. Because even if, even if things are more expensive, even if my taxes, or even if my taxes don't change, but the programs that I was promised never showed up, or they are here and they suck, or they're promised and they're here for a while and they go away, it's like there's people who are like, even if that is the reality, as long as it's our team doing it, as long as our ideas are failing, that makes me feel like I'm a good person, and that's okay. Right? Maybe my healthcare doesn't get any better, but I feel like a better person every day. So that's okay for me. I personally don't feel that way, but I do wonder sometimes if there is a little bit of like, that psychology is the word for it, but if there is that going on in the minds of some people, because I just read what people say, and I read what they write, and I hear what they say, and it just sounds so bizarre to me in the sense of like, it sounds like you're literally just arguing for pure ideological supremacy and nothing else. Like, it doesn't sound like you're actually arguing for helping a single person on the planet. It just sounds like you're arguing for domination of your ideas. That's not, I don't know. Really interesting point from Think Beyond brought this up. So that, if apparently Yang's going to be on Bill Maher this weekend. I didn't even know that, but hey. Which this weekend, does he do a Sunday? Is it like a Saturday taping, Sunday show? I don't know. Either way, coming up. But the idea that he will push the spoiler effect lie. I do wonder if he will, because Bill Maher is kind of interesting. Like, he's been interesting in his political takes, right? I disagree with that. Shale? Oh, I hope I'm pronouncing it right. That the solution is to bring economic pain to the middle and upper classes, because people start to do a lot of that kind of crabs in a bucket thing. You know what I mean? Like, you start turning up the heat in the middle class, they're going to just say pull the upper class down. Not raise the lower class up, pull the upper class down. And it's like, again, you're not helping people. It's helping people feel better about where they are in the world, but it's not helping us as a whole. It's not helping people, you know? And I'm not saying that's the only way things can happen. Just that tends to be that initial emotional response from people. Is, I see my standard of living dropping. Why isn't theirs? Bring theirs down to equal mine. And I think it's because in a way people feel like that's achievable, right? So like, no one's going to just give me money, but they could take money from them. And it's bad. It's not good. It's part of the reason why American politics are so weird and crazy. It's because I don't think that's necessarily true. I don't think I think one of the reasons why I actually like the idea of Andrew Yang's original approach of having kind of like a value-added tax, or just the idea of like, I liked Andrew Yang's idea of getting rid of the bloated bureaucratic attempt at just, having a million different programs that are really hard to keep track of and have turned into very demeaning processes of like basically showing up to the government and begging them for the services they told you that you have an entitlement to. Instead of doing things that way, why don't we just leverage the success of the upper class for our advantage? Like, again, having things like value-added taxes. I mean, those tend to be a percentage-based tax like that is a lot worse for somebody buying a Lamborghini than it is for someone buying a used Toyota, right? Buying a nice, regular used car, not an old beat or something that's, fine, that will get you from point A to point B for years, which is, what the middle class and lower classes are probably going to be investing their money in, will not be as negatively affected as luxury goods, which is one small example. But there is ways to leverage the success of the upper class and just take little things off the side here and there. Don't come to them and say, here's your bill for $50 million. Just take 10 cents a second so they don't notice it as much. Because for whatever reason, psychologically, people seem to be okay with that. If it's just a little nickel and diamond all the time, and you never get that big bill, it's just part of doing business. Why not say every time Amazon gets bigger, that's more money going into the pot? Not that we have to say, okay, Amazon, you've gotten too big, we're yanking you down. But instead, we can say, hell yeah, Amazon, get as big as humanly possible. The bigger you get, the bigger that 3% that we leverage off your success and redistribute gets. You're not pulling them down to do that. You're literally saying, please, fly higher. As long as there's an effective way to, again, leverage their success against them. As long as there's a way to say, the bigger you get, that, 2 or 3% that we just take off of you every single day, that's a larger number to us, even though it's the same 2% to you. And again, businesses hate that stuff. They're going to try to get around it. They're not going to just say, hell yeah, I love it. But yeah, I think finding ways to tax things like that, it's easier because it's not, no one gets the sticker shock. Because it doesn't matter how rich you are. If someone's like, here's your $5 million tax bill for the year, they're going to do whatever it takes to get out of that. It's just like, what? That's insane. But if over the course of the year, their accountant's like, yeah, you ended up paying like $5 million in taxes, They're probably going to want to find some way to not pay it again. But, you know, it isn't this impending bomb that's coming. It's just, yeah, that's how much it costs to operate. You know, like it's just, I don't know. I just think it's personally more effective. I can see why some people do kind of, you know, kind of want to go like crabs in a bucket mentality and just pull everyone down so none of us get out of here. But I think if you can just find a way to find the people that are going to be successful, find the people that are just going to keep growing and expanding forever, find things that are like again, like, it's like Thanos, right? Like, it feels like the growth of and the complete domination of Google and Amazon are inevitable. So why don't we find the best way to, you know, if we have to be barnacles, you know, just leeching on this, or, you know, stuck on the side, whatever it takes, just find a way to get a piece of that pie. Because at a certain point, if you end up saying we're going to be if at a certain point businesses feel like it's punitive and it's not just the taxes have to go up, but it's like we're yanking you down, they have no problem shooting themselves in the foot then. They're going to say, fine, we'll make less money. We'll divest. We'll move stuff other places, right? I'll invest my money in another business. Like, they'll do things about it. They're not just going to say, well, I guess we get screwed. You know, they're... No, see, let the successful people, let Jeff Bezos be Jeff Bezos. Just make it harder for him to screw the government to screw us out of his success. But by the way, I mean, this is something that is weird, and it is touchy, but it's like, seriously, Amazon Web Services allows you to access the internet cheaper and in many cases for free in ways that, like, there's websites that can offer everything for free, very stable, up almost all the time, leveraging Amazon's success. Like, we have ways of doing this already where it's like, we can't expect the government to do this stuff. They'll screw it up. They have no incentive really to get it right. Amazon has an incentive to get it right. It's just, we could, as a society, do a better job not letting these big, massive corporations and big, massive non-government entities kind of hide and move. Because again, like, so much money gets made here or made off of Americans or made using American intellectual properties and ideas that we just don't see any of. It's just gone. It's just into the ether. We'll never see a penny of it. And imagine if we just saw 5 pennies of every dollar that went out that way. That's it. Right? Like, not even that much. There is so much of this stuff just going everywhere in and out that if we could just get a teeny bit of that brought back, it could help. But I think it gets to the point, though, again, it's like you have to kind of decide, are we going to legislate based on ideology or outcome, right? Because if you're legislating purely based on ideology, you'll have people on the right that will just be like, that sounds like communist gobbledygook, can't raise taxes. And you'll have people on the left who are like, that's not enough. We have to raise it to near punitive levels. And it's like, why don't we find the outcome that's preferable, right? As opposed to the ideological position that's preferable. But it's not a winner. You don't sell things that way. Right? I mean, I'm pretty sure that's 100% like a real thing when it comes to like advertising, right? Advertising and marketing is like, you don't sell people on facts and figures. You just sell them a feeling. If people buy a bottle of Clorox or Windex and it says 8% more effective, if they don't feel like they're using a product that's 8% more effective, it doesn't matter. It's just a number on a label. But if you can find a way to make them feel like it's a more effective product without ever saying that, you know, new and improved formula. Oh, it won't new and improved. I mean, like that's same stuff as politics. That's all really, you know, electioneering is. It's marketing. It's sales. It's selling your idea. And it's really hard to sell people on, you know, kind of pragmatic, middle of the road, very outcome-based things. Because people don't want that. They're like, I don't know. Right? Like, I mean, it's the simple fact of the matter where how many people, I'm not trying to call anyone out, I guess I'll call myself out on this, right? But like, how many people sit around you think and you're like, man, if only I invested in this, if only I invested in that, if only I invested, it's like, I'm pretty sure if you invested in Amazon in 2016, you would have made money on that investment. Even though by 2016, it was obvious Amazon was already the biggest. Like, yeah, you weren't going to, you know, 100 times your investment, but I'm pretty sure it went up. Did it skyrocket? You know, did it go to the moon, for example? No. Would you feel stupid having equity in Amazon at this point? Probably not. But, it's, you know, same thing in politics. You could tell people, look, it's not the sexiest, most awesome thing. I'm not going to radically, fundamentally reshape the way you live as an American in this country, but I can make your life 10% better over the next few years. That's just like no one cares about that. But if you tell them, hey, there's a small chance that I'm literally going to revamp your life and you will not even recognize the country when I'm done with it. Even if it's a really small chance of actually happening, people are like, oh, hell yeah, man, I'm in. Even though, they have to know in the back of their head that's kind of an unrealistic promise, right? Like, some of this stuff's probably not going to happen. Can't all happen, right? Some of it's got to go. It's still, you want to believe, right? People want to believe. That's the toughest thing, getting through that. People wanting to believe in this stuff. There's nothing wrong with it, but, the fact of the matter is, it's like, who has got government right ever on this planet for any extended period of time? And even then, the circumstances are always changing. There's so much stuff that changes. Education levels. And even then, education levels for society is one thing, but the value of the education level for society is another thing. And the types of education, right? It might feel weird to us, right? But, there was entire societies for a very long time that were, seafaring people. Where, generally speaking, there was a high level of knowledge on how to, navigate and be a sailor. And that was, just generally something people knew how to do. And you could have societies where no one knew that stuff. It's not really super related to politics. What I mean is, you can see just, how things are, how people live their lives and interact with the world is going to impact how they think it should be ran. So it's how do you find the perfect way to run stuff? Because the people being governed are going to want to be governed certain ways based on kind of random or just kind of chance-based things. It's not always going to be coming from a place of reason or logic. It's not always going to be that easy to be like, oh, well, obviously, we just do this to make this better. Obviously, you just govern like this. This is the perfect way to govern. And it's like, it can't be. Because stuff changes. There was a time where a large part of this country was farmers. America does not have very many farmers anymore. Numerically, it's a big number. Agriculture is local. There's a few areas that dominate agriculture in this country, but no, yeah, the knowledge, the general, knowledge of just kind of living on the land or whatever doesn't exist anymore. It's plummeted. I remember a story my grandfather was telling me with his mother, so my great-grandmother. They lived in L.A. in, the 50s, and they would, raise rabbits and, kill them and, skin them and sell their fur. And I was just thinking, dude, that's a skill that, very few people living in L.A. today have, right? Raising animals and then, killing the animal you raised to skin it. And then, do whatever you have to do for the fur to then sell the fur. Or that. It's completely separate from how people in California and Los Angeles live today. And so they're going to want to be governed differently. Even if, similar governments might be good for them. Well, just tax the poor with that. And I don't know who said that. I guess you said that. So yeah, that is very much not a good idea. But I don't know. I definitely agree that the best way to get money from the rich people is whenever they do things that make them wealthier, take a piece of it. All right. Whatever way that needs to be worded to make people feel better about it, I think is if we can take all these wealth-gaining transactions that regular people don't interact with and find a way to take a piece off from the people who are doing the generate. Because again, if the argument is, well, if you raise taxes through a VAT, they'll just raise taxes on the businesses will just raise prices. Services will cost more. That applies to any tax raise at all. Literally anyone at all. Even if it's literally personal and if the people who own the businesses just have less money in their bank account, they will do things to make more money in their bank account. And it might be raising prices. They get to, we can be as punitive as we want to the upper class. They, by the way, own things. They, by the way, do things, and they can turn around and be as punitive as they want as well. So instead of starting a fight, it's probably a better way to negotiate. It's probably better to say, hey, instead of the peasant revolt, how about you give up 2% on these transactions? Will that cut into your bottom line a little bit? Yeah. Will it cut into your bottom line as much as the peasant revolt will? I don't know. Maybe not. See, don't I would encourage anyone to avoid that trap. It's an intentional trap. You don't ever want to, the rich people want you to feel that way. Because I mean, this is my belief, but I have a belief. There's a line in a movie, one of my favorite movies. There's a line in it, and it's a Norman character speaking to a Saxon character talking about, old Europe. And he says that one always wrongs what it hates, right? And the idea I take from that, like one always wrongs what it hates is, in this perspective, right, of wanting to just penalize the rich, punitive actions against the rich, make the rich suffer like we are. The problem with that is the rich people need you to act that way. The rich people, the people that are mistreating you, if you are who they say you are, ungrateful, just hateful, just want to see them suffer, you're just peasants beating on the doors, that justifies everything they do in mistreating you. All of it. They're just dirty, hateful peasants that want to break the doors down and kill us. So we should be oppressing them even harder. Like, they need you. As soon as people don't act that way, it's less of I'm fighting back, and it's more of I am literally just oppressing people and holding them down for no reason. That's harder to rationalize. It's a lot easier to rationalize that these people are bad and wrong, and I'm doing what I'm doing for a legitimate reason. That's so much easier to rationalize than I'm really just kind of screwing these people over and just stomping on them for no reason, just to make myself feel better. Some people, by the way, can do that. So it's like, it's not like, like some people have no problem. They're like, yeah, screw them. To hell with them. But the way you get more people involved, the way you get more than just some people doing that is that you have to, there has to be a system. It's the same thing with the government. The government and the politicians, like the people that actually are kind of, passing laws that only really help them, and they're not really furthering the people that are passing the ideological outcome, the ideological legislation that has no basis in outcome. Those people need the people that they're screwing over to act out. They need them to behave in a way that justifies them being mistreated. As soon as they stop behaving in that way, it's harder to recruit people onto the side of mistreating them. Because you're going to have people that you could convince that we know, you don't understand. We have to oppress these people. We have to hold them down because they do this. There's going to be people who can be convinced that way who wouldn't go along otherwise. And it's easy when but again, they understand this. And it's kind of like it's like by design. You're poking and prodding people into behaving a certain way, so when they behave that way, you can use it as justification for continuing to poke and prod them in that way. It's like a cycle. So it's like it's not the way to break through the duopoly. It's the way to increase it. I mean, the right wing and the left wing, like, I'm pretty sure, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure when people in America make references to modern Anglo people make references to the right wing and the left wing, I think they're referring to the French Revolution, which was probably the most polarized time in for a small period of time. It was extreme polarity. It was the extreme duopoly. And it basically flamed out and ended in the crowning of Napoleon as the monarch and emperor of France. Like, it's not good. Again, this is the thing is funny. Like, the French Revolution ended when they coronated Napoleon as emperor of France. Is that what people want? The emperor of America? I'll be honest. I kind of want the emperor of America. I don't want to get there through guillotines. I want to get there through, I think we should just find whoever George Washington's illegitimate living heir is and say that they are elevate them to the level of emperor of America. But no, like, the revolution ends in the emperor or the dictator 100% of times. It's literally, it's how you speed run becoming a dictatorship, is you have a revolution. And then boom, dictators in power, because revolutions don't really end. So they're called revolutions. They just go in a circle, basically forever. Because the revolution, all of a sudden, almost inevitably sparks the counter-revolution. The counter-revolution itself being something of a revolution. And it's just nonsense. It doesn't help. It's It's the equivalent of just turning the chessboard over and walking away and being like, yeah, I won. At least they lost. Like it's not the correct response. It's the response that justifies the government, enables them for behaving the way they do. When I mean a true emperor, what I would say is my advice to that would be is that's the only thing you could ever do. Then the only place that gets you is just away from the table with no influence. You're not table anymore. When the other people putting the pieces back on the board, you don't get to decide where they go. It's not. It's a great way to get you out, get you away, get you to quit. Just give up. Give up on the system that not everyone's giving up on. Okay, apparently, I don't know if you're like obsessed with the value-added tax, but again, like there's other ways of. Again, you know what? That's a great way. The legislation should be based on outcomes, not ideologies. Yeah, the ideological marriage to the value-added tax would be foolish. The idea or the fact that we do get larger percentage of tax revenue from companies when we find ways to kind of take money off the side as opposed to just throw bills at them, that is true. If you just throw a bill at them, they just hide the money. They do so many things to avoid the bill. If it's unavoidable, well, it's unavoidable. Doesn't mean it has to be the most regressive, stupid tax plan ever, because that's the one we came up with. No, it means we should find one that works. Like for example, if value-added tax truly is just a tax on the poor, great. Let's figure out why that's taxing the poor, and then figure out how to not do that. We'll call it something different. It will function different. It'll have different rules. It'll have a lot of things. But the idea is, again, this is not the be-all end-all, but the idea is that find the outcome that works. Trying to raise the bill at the end of the year on companies, it's just not working. And what it does is, it lets us do this. The government can say it raised taxes. Companies can find a way of avoiding these taxes because they're creative. And they avoid the taxes. Now, once the taxes are avoided, the problem is the government already said they exist. And so the government starts operating under the assumption that they're going to be taking in this tax revenue. And then the tax revenue gets dodged. And then they have to find a way to raise taxes even more because money's missing now. Like, that happens a lot. So it's like, yeah, maybe the value-added tax isn't a good idea. But at the same time, it doesn't mean that trying to find ways to leverage the success of companies through their transactions to take tax revenue that way is the stupidest idea ever. Because raising the bill at the end of the year seems to never work and get nowhere and not do anything. All it does is raise the deficit. It raises the discrepancy between how much tax revenue the government thinks it's taking in and how much it actually is taking in. It just raises that discrepancy. So it's the problem. It's like the idea of taxing wealth. You can't tax wealth. Wealth doesn't exist. Wealth is a concept we make up. It literally just dips in and out. Goes one way, goes the other. It can be gamed. Look at NFTs. Seriously, if somebody says, "Oh, I just transferred you an NFT worth 180 grand," is that actually did your worth really change? Like, there's a lot of stupid ways of doing taxes. I don't think transactional based taxes are stupid. Is the European value-added tax perfect? I don't know, probably not. Is conceptually the idea of not trying to just continue to do the stupid tax raising that doesn't work a good idea? No. I think also I don't know, I've never really been under any illusion that Andrew Yang was the seer that will save politics, right? Yeah, he's probably gets some ideas wrong. Doesn't change the fact that he seems to be one of the few people who actually does I was saying that there's kind of this pardon my French, but there's this magic in the universe, literal magic, and anybody can bottle and harness this magic and make it work for them. And all you have to do is just give a shit. And if you truly give a shit, like really do, magic happens every time. Every time. If you don't, it's not there. You won't get it. And I think of the people in politics that seem to truly give a shit about something, Andrew Yang seems to care about something beyond just making Andrew Yang famous. Because he's already famous. He could have just stayed in CNN and been famous. He would have been one of those people 5-6 years from now. It'll just say CNN political analyst. They won't even mention that he used to run for office. He could have done that easily. Just sold books, been like a guy they call on CNN and stuff. He could have got his own show maybe. So that doesn't mean that he has the most pure motives of any human being ever. It just doesn't seem like purely, strictly fame and people paying attention to him is the only thing that matters to him. It does seem like, no, he actually wants some of the stuff get done. And so that's why I hear him out. It's why I listen to him. It's why I like some of his ideas. But yeah, like I'm never going to make the argument that Andrew Yang should be elevated to the status of emperor and just be allowed to do whatever the hell he wants, and we should just do what he says. Like I've never really felt that way. I just like that he actually does seem to care on some level. Like if his ideas somehow help people without him being elevated, I think he'd be okay with that. And it's not normal. Oh, so I haven't done one of these in a while. Super chat from Fred Chung. Best way to get a third party is to be regional. Canada got NDP reform and Bloc Québécois is starting regional. BQ is still regional, but wins seats. I do think it is a good idea, and I do think I wonder if with the United States, Canada, I mean, it goes east to west about as far, right? But it's not quite as deep. I think multi-regional, yeah. Like I think like if Andrew Yang were to really focus on probably California, New York, maybe some other parts in the Northeast, maybe some areas in like Austin, stuff like that. Like if they were to focus on stuff like that and be multi-regional, I think it's a good idea. Yeah, I definitely do. I definitely think it's a way to what's the word? Consolidate your power, right? Or not power, but your influence. Because yeah, you might if there's 5 years from now, 6 congressional candidates from a third, not Andrew Yang's third party, but if any third party were to try to do this, if there were to be 6 candidates associated to a third party, but they were just like spread out across the country, one in Wyoming, one in Missouri, one in Texas, one in Hawaii, one in Oregon. I agree. Any third party trying to do that, it'd be tough because it's like in all of those regions, they're just like the one person, like that one weirdo. Like, oh yeah, they're the whatever person, right? But then if you again only have that same 5 or 6 people, again, in any third party, it doesn't matter who it is or when it is. But if you were to have that same number, 5 or 6, but yeah, located in one region, suddenly they have some regional influence. Like that's a good thing. But I do wonder. I really do wonder. Because as I kind of brought up before, I don't know if you guys, anyone just joined, Andrew Yang is literally calling out the power structure of it. This is my favorite thing is, hey, I'm the numbers guy. And by the way, we should be getting rid of, and then he just name drops Nancy Pelosi without name dropping Nancy. He might say her name out loud. He probably does say her name out loud in the video. I'm not playing the audio, right? But it's like, he's kind of operating like someone who understands that, yeah, like, I'm just making enemies. I'm not making friends. I got to kind of come out swinging. So I don't know if Forward will be the party necessarily that does it. But also, man, just getting interest in third parties. Again, I think the ultimate success of the Forward Party could literally be starting a counterparty that only exists to run against them. Because then it just means we have another third party. Yeah, like that's probably the best way to get lasting outcome out of this. is to get a movement against it. Because I don't think anybody will. Actually, I take it back. There even is people. I've seen them, I guess. They're like legitimately anti-third party from like the point of like there should only be Democrats and Republicans. And then there should only be Democrats and Republicans, but either Democrats or Republicans are illegitimate and shouldn't exist either. That seems to be a lot of people's stance on this stuff. So. But all right. Oh, wow. We've already gone over an hour. I was really just expecting to sit down for a few minutes here. So I guess any other questions? I'm trying to think. I mean, again, I'm over these next few days. I'm still really catching up on everything that's happened. I mean, it's crazy to think. I mean, I have a cursory awareness of a lot of the drama that was going on. The fact that there's Well, just all the infighting, I guess, in the Yang Gang, so to speak. I've been keeping up with a lot of that stuff, and a lot of they're old and they shouldn't be deciding future they won't be alive to see. Well, maybe they know something we don't, huh? Maybe they're gonna live forever. But yeah, it is. He's got a point. He's right. It just, again, he's talking about members of Congress, senators, and the leadership of the House. Those are, the people that make the government go. The government doesn't work without these people. Not, the government might actually function better, but it's just the way it's set up today. They press the buttons. They sign the papers. They say aye. They do the votes. Right? And it's a bold fight to pick when you have no real institutional support at all. That's tough. Oh, what's up, man? Yeah, I'm definitely doing well. Will I be streaming with Cardin anytime soon? Into the same studio like we used to? Probably not, because we're in different states. However, I can't make any promises because Cardin's an extremely busy guy. It's hard to nail him down. I do want to, because we both have wanted to talk about the Andrew Yang's new party and just kind of some, general stuff. Get him on some Zoom call stuff. So he'll be in the old studio. I'll be here, and I want to do that stuff. I can't promise or confirm it yet. It's just tough. He's out of town this weekend, so I couldn't do it this weekend. But I definitely want to try a few. The first time it happens, it will be a surprise. And then if I can get him to, sit still a little bit longer, it'll be easier to kind of promise going forward. So that's what Cardin is. Cardin's doing fine. He's with his beautiful family right now, enjoying the weekend. So yeah, there is that. And I felt like there was one other thing I wanted to bring up and talk about. Like a small thing. Let's check my tabs. I'm just buried in my tabs. No, I really can't remember. Huh. That sucks. I guess whatever it was too, it's not even that important. I can't remember it. But yeah, I guess any other questions you guys have. I'll hang out here for another few minutes. What's the lowdown on the Yang Gang division? Well, I guess the simplest way I could put it is that there was definitely a large, substantial group of people, that were fans of Andrew Yang, who definitely did not love to hear that he was breaking up with the Democratic Party and starting his own party, right? There are certain people who like Andrew Yang in the context of Andrew Yang being a Democrat, but in a different context, in the context of Andrew Yang working against the Democrats, they don't really like him as much, right? I think that's probably the simplest way to put it, right? For example, I saw people that were supporting. Some people were supporting Curtis Silva, the guy running as a Republican in New York City because he supports UBI or something. That was a big issue. There were some people that were like, good, Andrew Yang should believe in the Democratic Party. They suck. There were some people that were like, what? I'm a Democrat. I believe in the Democratic Party. I don't like to hear this. Andrew Yang literally left the party that he had been a member of and ran for president under. I think that's kind of the way that I think would be the easiest way to... here's the thing. If you are someone who is a Democrat and you believe in the Democratic Party, you believe they're the legitimate governing force in this nation, and Andrew Yang says, I don't believe in that party and I'm not a member of it anymore, I would just imagine you would feel a certain way about that, right? Like the spoiler, people can say, but the bottom line is, I'm just saying hypothetically, if I'm a Democrat and it's my opinion that the Democratic Party is the best future for the country, and Andrew Yang says, no, they aren't. As a matter of fact, I dislike them so much, I'm leaving them. Well, yeah, dude, people aren't going to, love that. I'm not saying that they're in the right or the wrong. I'm trying to take sides that way. But I just mean, there's been a lot of stuff like that where people are, upset. They're like, I don't like this. No. And then at the same time, though, you have to understand that it's well, you don't own Andrew Yang. He is not beholden to you, and Andrew Yang is allowed to do whatever the hell he wants. It's not up to you to decide if Andrew Yang is allowed to leave the Democrats, right? Andrew Yang is his own person who could do whatever he can have whatever party he wants. He can caucus with whoever he wants. He can run with whoever he wants. But there's an issue in politics right now. People don't feel that way. They feel like they have ownership, and not even politics. It's like it's a thing about like you see it in these kind of like what's the word they use for it a lot, like parasocial relationships, or the idea of we feel like we have, when you're a fan of a person or a thing, even if they're like a not a real person, even if they're like literally a character in a TV show, but if they are a real person, like a politician, we feel like we have a certain level of ownership over them and they owe something to us. And I think that's wrong and we shouldn't, right? People aren't bad for being like that. It's a very normal human reaction. I just think you're seeing a lot of it with Andrew Yang. A lot of how dare he, right? You're just gonna help Republicans. I mean, Andrew Yang went on Tucker Carlson for, at the minimum, the second time, and maybe the third, and people melted down over it. Because, again, they felt like they kind of have, like they had ownership over Andrew Yang, and they hate Tucker Carlson. How dare you do that? But in reality, it's like Andrew Yang can do whatever the hell he wants. He can reach whoever he wants, wherever he wants. There isn't ownership from, no one owns him. Like, as far as, the people who supported him. It might feel like a betrayal in a way, as they might frame it, right? I supported this person, and now they're associating with people I think are unassociatable with. But still, that's not up to them to decide. So I think that's what kind of I was seeing a lot of. I can't get too into the specifics because again, like I hate people fighting on Twitter because there's various websites and like video games and stuff I've played in my days growing up that are kind of renowned for being very places with a lot of fighting and bickering that go on in them. And one meme that always rises up whenever you're ever in any one of these websites or communities, there's this idea that like thank God none of you people ever leave this place, right? Like if it was like thank God these people are on Twitter just bashing each other. Thank God you're on Twitter 12 hours a day. Thank God you're not outside around normal people walking around talking, right? Like it's whether it be Twitter or other websites or video games. I'm a Dota player, and that's a big joke in the Dota community, right? It's like all those people deserve each other. Like thank God they aren't in the real world doing actual human stuff. They're all just quarantined in this area. So it's like that's the only way I kind of get there. But I just avoid a lot of those conversations because that is the truth. Is that it's that like it's not it's a bunch of people who are just going to sit on Twitter and fight on Twitter and not do anything about it either way that are fighting on Twitter. So it's like because I read stuff sometimes and I'm just like I'm like concerned. I'm like dude, what? These people want to like kill people? Like, what the hell? This is crazy. Like, what's going on? But then it's like, all right, take a deep breath. This is Twitter people. Oh, I'm definitely thank you. Didn't realize how much I needed some Cody. Well, thank you very much, man. You are much too kind. But I appreciate it. I really do. And Norm MacDonald, honestly, this is this was the one thing I did kind of want to put on Twitter, but I didn't. And it was just like of the entire Andrew Yang 2020 ride. Following Andrew Yang, all the stuff he did, going to the various events. I really had a great time. It's one of the reasons why I did it. I liked what he was doing. I thought it was really cool kind of, thing. But I would still say one of the coolest moments of all of that was, I don't know if you guys remember, but during one of the debates, Norm MacDonald, took over Andrew Yang's Twitter. There was some goofy publicity stunt between Norm MacDonald and Andrew Yang. And we did a video about it. And the Norm MacDonald Twitter account retweeted it. And that was one of the coolest things that personally, this is a total aside, not a big deal at all. Just like me, funny. But again, one of the reasons why that was able to happen though is because all you guys watch and you guys support us and you were there with us. So I just wanted to say how much I appreciate all that. It's one of the coolest little moments in my entire life. And a lot of it was because we are doing this stuff, but still, you guys are out there listening and supporting. I've always appreciated it. I mean, seriously, have missed talking to all you guys and being around. Just being able to go online, turn it on, talk about stuff like this. I really have missed it. So it's been nice, and I really just appreciate having you guys here. I'm shocked so many people showed up when I just turned the stream on earlier today. Really, it means a lot. I'm very happy. So, I trust me, man. I know me and Carden got to get in some more arguments. That's why I can't promise because it's just we live in different states. We have slightly different schedules. He's super busy, but I do want to get him back on, especially on this topic. And then thank you very much. Zero Fallout 1 said, thanks. This is sad. The state of Yang Gang. I mean, it's very much a transitionary state, and that's any transitionary state. I mean, that's what happens, especially when you have something like Andrew Yang and what his movement was about, which is that like the whole point of what he was trying to do was bring the people together that had maybe different ideological ideas, but similar goals. Like again, I've had this highlighted on the screen because I do believe this is such like a simple way to get to it. People that just wanted to see outcome and not ideology. People who just wanted to see things getting better in ways that could be measured, not just their side winning. And when you attract a lot of people like that, eventually, because also keep this in mind, people that got attracted to Andrew Yang when Andrew Yang was running in the primaries, I mean, we're talking what, 2019, the middle of 2019, July 2019, the fall, right? I mean, this is a while ago. A lot of people legitimately are probably moved in their political positions today than they were back then. I don't want to say more radicalized, but maybe just more sure that they want certain things, right? And keep that in mind as well. Like things have changed. Like people that might have, been in one place politically 2 years ago might have moved one way or the other. They might feel more one thing or another. They might have seen things in this time that change how they feel. And so it's important to keep that in mind as well. That there's not everybody is the same person they were. I mean, especially you want to talk about not only just 2 years ago, like pre-pandemic, I honestly think the 2020 presidential election is going to be one of those things that if we are ever able to like sober up over this, I think 10, 15, 20 years from now, people will look back on that time as like, yeah, wow, what a truly like just bad time for America. Like what a just truly on edge, just overwhelmingly negative, internally aggressive period in American history, right? It's kind of hard when you're in it. It's like I said, you're almost kind of like intoxicated by everything going on, all the stories, all the characters, all the players. But I think as time passes, we're going to realize that really was something that probably did change the way people viewed politics for years after, right? A lot of people might have entered that, that 2019 primary season a little bit naive and left that 2020 general election season absolutely jaded and scarred, right? Like, it was crazy, man. Like we can do what people generally do when they go through trauma as a country and like pretend 2020 didn't happen, right? We can pretend you didn't turn your TV on every day and just hear about killings and fires, right? And it depended what station you turned into for what killing and fire you heard about. But you were going to hear about people getting killed and beaten and attacked. You were going to see the footage. You're going to have people on the screen telling you awful things endlessly. No matter where you looked, it was just going to look worse, right? Remember the toilet paper? I mean, like all this stuff, like people can just pretend it meant nothing. But dude, like when you live in a country where there isn't grocery store shelves empty and there isn't massive political street violence on a daily basis across the country, and then all of a sudden there is, again, we can be delusional and pretend that did nothing. Pretend that we all just shrugged it off. That it just went over, no, man. People are not looking at their neighbors the same way they used to. They're not looking at this country the same way they used to. I truly, truly wonder if the Constitution, as it was written with all of the current amendments, was up for election. Are we going to keep this document or rewrite an entirely new document from scratch? I honestly think rewriting a new document from scratch would win an election, right? Yet the Constitution still is largely what kind of guides the, overarching philosophical way the country runs. Even though I think, especially today in 2021, a lot of people probably would vote against it. I probably wouldn't. Honestly, I'm more of a traditionalist in that sense. I wouldn't even say traditionalist. I would just say bad ideas don't last as long. They just don't. Good ideas last. We don't always know why, but bad ideas tend to blow up. Good ideas tend to kind of they just manage to survive. And it's, again, we might not even notice all the angles. We might not even see every particular thing that gives it an edge and helps it survive, but it just kind of does. Whereas bad ideas go away. Bad ideas are flashes in the pan. They're blips. They work. A lot of bad ideas are insanely specific and work in ridiculously specific situations, or a lot of ideas come about to combat ridiculously specific situations. Right? So it's like whenever anything changes and it's not that specific anymore, it just implodes. And I would say the fact that the Constitution, and again, it's been amended and changed, but as it's basically existed for hundreds of years, it hasn't, imploded on itself yet. It generally means there's something in the background working, even if we don't notice it. Even if we can't put our fingers on it, there's something working. So I'm not for just getting rid of it. Well, I mean, it's a lot of overarching. I think the reason why I'm so interested in Andrew Yang, and I'm always attracted to what Andrew Yang is talking about. And again, I don't think he's the smartest person who's ever lived, who's never been wrong. But it's just he all of his ideas always are getting at that kind of reality. It's always getting at that point. And I think it's one of the reasons why he attracts people from kind of both ends of the political spectrum, right? Is because he's mostly attracting people that are frustrated but want to see things get better, not people that are just frustrated and want to win, right? Now, unfortunately, both the Republicans and the Democrats, they're finding people that are frustrated and just want to win, which is the worst thing you can ever ask for a politician. You're basically saying you owe me nothing. When when people get in that position of X party has to win because they have the good ideas, you're basically saying you owe me nothing. I'm supporting you just for being you. And they're going to say, cool, pound sand the second they get elected. They're not going to do anything for you. And it's reality. Like you need to ask for real things from your elected officials, specific things. You need to ask for things. You need to ask for outcomes. And if those outcomes are not delivered, there needs to be an understanding that they will be voted out. Right? You have a job to do. I mean, I look at it kind of similar in a way. Because I guess a way you can kind of look at as far as something that is routinely pivoting and changing directions every couple years might be a bit, I don't want to say like reductive or simplistic to put things in these terms, but the idea that, like, you look at like an NFL football team, right? NFL teams have general managers and head coaches, and when they don't perform, they get fired, and they get replaced with new ones, and they will try radically different things. And if they don't perform, they generally get fired and replaced with new people who will try new things. It isn't like they just replace people with the same person over and over. Like, the new people come in and try new things. And until something works or is effective, we just keep cycling through them. Or an NFL team will just keep cycling through people till they find one that works, an idea that works. They might sit down and hire a guy, and that guy might say, I want to do X, Y, and Z. I want to focus on this part of our team. I want to make this part better. And the owners might say, awesome, that sounds great. Then they go out, try to make it possible, and they lose a bunch of games. And it doesn't work. And they get fired. And some other guy might come in and say, hey, I want to just sign all the most expensive players. And the owner might go, I don't know, it sounds like a dumb idea, but whatever, I haven't tried it yet. And then it works. Who cares why one worked and the other didn't? Right? It's finding what works. It's finding the wins that matters. It's not about, and by the way, the reason why I bring this up, you would think in pro sports, they would pretty much always fire people when they screw up. But one of my, and this is a bit in the weeds, I guess, for sports, but I do think it's a good analogy. The reason I'm going to bring it up is a lot of the times what happens in football, for example, right? You have two people who tend to be decision makers in a football team when it comes to drafting new players, adding new talent, right? The general manager and the head coach, generally speaking, have the most say. It depends, right? You will see this happen. A football team will decide on a quarterback for their football team. And he won't be any good. It won't work. They'll lose all their games. But the coach and the general manager will not let that player be replaced because they know the failure of that player is ultimately their failure. And as soon as they give up on that player, it means they have no reason for being there anymore. Same thing happens in politics. With politicians get in, they tie their name to a bill, they tie their name to a policy, they tie their name to a movement. Now, as soon as that bill, policy, and movement are useless, they're useless. If those are ever proven wrong, they're proven wrong. So no matter how stupid this idea may evidently become, no matter how clearly not like dysfunctional, whatever it is, as long as they dig in and refuse to admit it's a failure, they haven't lost. It's the old like stock thing, right? You only lose if you sell, right? I remember I used to do a show I used to help do a show with a financial guy, and he would say, "Well, if I only lose when I sell, doesn't that mean I only gain when I sell? Like, what? How do they make money if I didn't sell, but then I haven't lost money until I sell? It wouldn't be the same way." But it's the same thing. It's like once a politician has said, it's one of the reasons why Andrew Yang being the UBI politician is tough. He can't amend that, right? Can't really. No, you can. You literally can. You literally can. You could stand up for your new. But I'm saying, like, from a brand perspective, it becomes tough because suddenly it's like, well, then why do we need you? If the thing you did, you aren't doing anymore, what is your purpose, right? If you guys drafted this quarterback and not only did he suck, but we're getting rid of him, why am I paying you guys? Oh, thank you to the last couple super chats. Thank you, James. Oh my god, I butcher everyone's name. I apologize. Zong? Zong? I apologize. Either way, thank you very much, man. I'm the worst when it comes to names. When it comes to pronouncing any kind of name, the only thing that I ever notice about any kind of word ever, if it's not the most plain Anglo word of all time, I just think I know if it's a French word, you don't pronounce the ending consonant, and beyond that, I'm kind of screwed. So, but I always do my best, though. I swear. All right, thank you. And I thought there's a couple other questions I wanted to get to. Oh, someone asked me about Squid Game. I have not watched that yet. Although I will say, me and Cardin were kind of flirting around with the idea of doing a video, like a movie channel on the side for a while. And I will say, one of my personal little kind of side interests and like side genres that I like, I've always been a massive fan of what I call killer game show movies. And I'm very happy to see that this whole killer game show subgenre is getting some legs with Squid Game. I haven't seen the show yet, but yeah, someone asked about it. And I thought there was one other. Yeah, but and again though, ultimately, I definitely think the relationship between the government and the citizens, to address some of the stuff in chat, is out of whack. However, the solution, in my opinion, is to find a way to get the government and their citizens kind of on the same. Oh yeah, that's what I wanted to answer. Yes, I'm in the Las Vegas area. Technically, I'm in Henderson, but yes, I can literally see the Las Vegas Strip from my apartment. So yeah, I am in that area right now. Battle Royale, Running Man, another one of my favorites that doesn't get, not favorites, but a show that's a little bit different. There's a show called Series 7, called Series 7, very low budget indie movie. However, it was a really interesting movie. It was kind of like how, a little bit how Running Man was kind of like how Running Man was a bit satirical about that whole kind of like super cheesy 80s, 90s game show kind of thing. Series 7 is very satirical about early 2000s reality TV shows. It's basically a movie about in the future, there's a reality TV show where it's like, imagine like Big Brother, but instead of Big Brother, there's a bunch of random people that are just trying to murder each other all around the city. And the last one standing wins. It's very low budget, but I'm so off topic about movies here, but the last thing I want to say about that movie in particular, I definitely have one thing I love to see. There's this particular kind of low budget, amateur, extremely heavy-handed satire that I love. You know, where someone's trying to be satirical and they're trying to like poke fun at something and they're trying to say something, but they just don't quite have the writing talents to make it come across as smart. So it's just super over the head, super basic, super whatever. But there's like this almost like childlike bluntness to it that I love. I think that movie does that multiple times. So yeah, sorry, just off to the side. Who would win a Congress Squid Game? Who would win? I haven't seen Squid Game, so I don't know how social it is. I don't know how social and physical it is. Generally speaking, stuff like that, whoever can manipulate people the best wins, right? You have to manipulate the stronger people than you to assist you, and you have to manipulate the weaker people than you to take out the stronger people. That's generally who wins stuff like that. It's kind of one of the, I don't know. I don't want to, I'm not trying to say this in like a cynical way, but like, I guess again, I'm going to bring up a bit of a reference, but there was a wrestler. I wasn't alive when he wrestled. He wrestled in the 80s. His name was Jake the Snake Roberts. Very intense and evil guy was his character. But I remember he had a speech he gave once about a wrestling match, and he was talking in his kind of weird, creepy ways. But he's like, "Look, like it's not about who's the best. It's not about who's It's not about who's gonna the strongest or the fastest. It's whoever wants it the most and whoever's willing to do what the other guy isn't." And like realistically, yeah, that's politics as well. It's not the smartest person. It's not the person with the best ideas. It's not the best looking person. It's not the best talker. A lot of times it's the person who's just willing to do the thing the other people aren't. Right? They'll take the deal the other people won't take. That's all it separates them, man. Like, some of the stuff, you got a lot of people going for this stuff that really care. And it only takes one to just say, all right, I'll be unscrupulous. Just one. Yeah, but now what I would say then is you ask yourself why you want to make the rich pay, right? I don't want to get too, but I would just say in the general, right? In the abstract, I would say that generally speaking, if you can learn to come to terms with multiple things, including yourself, and love yourself, you will stop caring about the rich. Don't just care about yourself. But that's, again, not being specific. I'm not speaking to you in particular. But I'm just saying, like, generally speaking, it's probably one of the reasons why it is so difficult to do this, right? You have a lot of people who maybe do have the resources and the individual capabilities of doing something who might have just got to a point in their life where they just don't worry about politics, even if it negatively impacts them. They might just be at a place with themselves in their life. They just don't think about it. And, it's tough. I think it's one of the reasons why it can feel like sometimes in politics and stuff like this that nobody gives a shit, nobody cares. But in reality, it's, life is a 24-hour thing, man. Like not everybody is going to have the same, like, they're not going to put the same time and effort into thinking about politics and its outcomes. They're not. Some people will just, be thinking about their own life, their family, their stuff close to them. It doesn't mean that nobody cares and that everything's falling apart. It just means that, there's a lot of stuff going on. It's not always so easy. It's just like, well, we just got to change this. Like, there's some people that are like, I don't know, man. I can live with this current system as it is. Like, it's, and then again, like, maybe, at the end of the day, you got to ask yourself, too, who's better off? The person who's just like, I'm going to get by, right? Or the people that are just like, why isn't anyone helping? It's tough. But yeah, I mean, but also, again, to get into like the, what is it? Get into people who do bad things. This is, I mean, it's funny, but it's like the most, like, think about it. What do you think, like, one of the most stereotypical, like, scheming, manipulative, old, like, book people could read, right? Like, things are literally to this day described as Machiavellian, right? And like his book, The Prince, like his famous book he wrote, it's like super tried and play. I'm gonna bring it up a lot, but he goes on for an extended period of time in that book about this concept of however you take power is more or less how you're going to lose power, right? If you kick down the door and cut the king's head off, you're probably going to be really paranoid that one day someone's going to kick the door down and cut your head off. And you're probably going to govern as if every day someone's going to kick down your door and cut your head off. You will probably be very heavy-handed, very oppressive. And it's because you can't forget how you got where you are. You know? And the people who were there when it happened, they don't forget that either. Like they notice. Oh, so that's how you get to the top. That's what you do. And that is that precedent is set by people. And it can be set either way. You know? If someone does get to the top in politics by being a good person, by going against their party when they need to, by not being, just another stuffed suit party politician, suddenly something of a, precedent can be set that you can succeed that way. But when all the success in politics tends to come from people who don't behave that way, the precedent's been set. And then the thing is, young people who want to get into politics, they look around and they see who's getting ahead in politics, right? And they say, I have to do what they're doing. Because that's how you get ahead. You get ahead doing what people get ahead do. And the people who got ahead know this, and they gatekeep it. They want to hold down anyone who isn't doing things the way they did it. It's normal, and it exists in a lot more than politics. Right? It exists in a whole lot more than American politics. Just some, have a social club. It'll exist in the social club. Somebody will get to an elevated social status in that social club or circle, and they'll do it through a certain means, and they're going to rigidly enforce that's the way you get there. And then everyone else will internalize that's how I get there. And then even though there's no rule saying that this is how you become popular, this is how you become this is how you get to the top, it'll be kind of like an unofficial rule. People will just start selectively going that way. And then at a certain point, you don't have to even enforce it anymore. People just do it. At a certain point, that's the way things are done. And then somebody not being a, corrupt person is a threat to the entire, again. So I do wonder, the way Andrew Yang has talked, and I need to read more, I need to see more. Okay, the whole mansion and cinema thing. These people have phones. These people are human beings. These people have thoughts and ideas. These people are more than capable of getting together and actually coming to terms if they want to. Right? Like, something tells me if Biden really wanted to get Sinema and Manchin on board, he could. Because again, they aren't computer programs. They aren't dogs. They aren't just 100% irrational and unreasonable. They want something. How about this, man? I would never put this past anything. What if... How about this? This is a hypothetical. This is a hypothetical. But what if, hypothetically speaking, Sinema and Manchin are falling on the sword for someone else? Maybe somebody wants the stalemate, right? Maybe somebody wants the appearance that if it wasn't for this dang Sinema and Manchin, we could just get it done. And maybe in exchange for that, Sinema and Manchin are being the bad guys. Maybe they're saying, okay, we'll bite the bullet. We'll come across as entirely unreasonable and just refuse to accept because this is a status quo people want to uphold in DC. And if Sinema and Manchin, by the way, it might be a win-win. Sinema and Manchin might be like, you know what? My constituents actually would like me to sit out. So if I could do you a favor by sitting out and my constituents are happy, hell yeah. And you know what? The people who ask him to do this favor probably know that. They probably wonder, who are the moderates that actually could fight this bill without burning their chances of re-election? Why don't we find them? Like, this idea, there's like this arrogant presumption that we as the American people, what's forward-facing to us is the way things function in the Capitol. No, it doesn't, right? Like, how often do you read an article, oh, all of a sudden senators just came together on some bill overnight. It just happened. Well, no, those conversations were probably happening behind closed doors for weeks. And then something changed where they could do it now. I don't know. Here we go. If here's the two kind of extremes, right? Cinema and Manchin are not only bot shills, but they're unique bot shills. They're not like the other bot shills who take massive donations from all the same type of people to do the same kind of nonsense to pass bills and laws that help their donors, which is something that's universal to Congress. Either Sinema and Manchin have some deal that's so sweet that they're even more unscrupulous than everyone else who's doing this, or Sinema and Manchin are doing the Democrats a favor and being the bad guys. I don't know. What makes more sense? That they're uniquely corrupt or they're equally corrupt? I think they're equally corrupt. I think they have no issue blocking this bill. Again, like, these people aren't computer programs. This isn't randomly generated. Yeah, if for whatever reason, I'm not saying I know why, but if for whatever reason the Democrats wanted to create, or not even the Democrats, the White House wants to create this appearance that they can't get this bill passed, it would probably make sense to look for Democrats who are moderates and like find people who would have no problem not voting for the bill anyway, and then tell them, hey, you can do me a solid by not voting too. What makes more sense? I don't know. To me, that makes the most sense. That feels the most like how adults do things. Right? Where it's not like Manchin and Sinema just, oh man, if only they weren't Scooby-Doo villains, we could just get this bill passed. But no, for whatever reason, the government's dragging their feet. Why? Well, no one's asking that question. Because again, Sinema and Manchin are Scooby-Doo villains that are just blocking it. You know? Maybe Old Man Riggs wants to sell the mine, so they got to scare away other investors. Like, it's like, it makes a lot more sense to me that they are just being told, we don't want to actually pass this, but we want to create the appearance that we're trying. So can you help us out by blocking this? And they're like, yeah, my donors want me to block it anyway, and so do my constituents. Like, I don't know. To me, that sounds like how, governments function. Right? Because again, like, the government, whether we like this relationship or not, the government essentially, the people that make up the government, they act as if we, the citizens, are not, they don't represent us, they raise us because we're their baby. That's kind of how they treat it, right? And sometimes mommy and daddy get behind the scenes and, they have a debate one way, but then when it comes, time for the baby, they say, okay, baby, we made a decision. But in reality, they got this all ironed out ahead of time. That's kind of how the government looks at us. Like we're just stupid children who just look up at them. And so they're like, okay, what we'll do is we'll tell them that it's all Sinema and Manchin's fault that we can't get this bill passed. It's all their fault. They're all, this Sinema and Manchin. And then we don't have to actually pass anything. It's a win-win, right? Because I'm going to go use another sport reference for you guys, but in sports, in football, they have a saying that says the backup quarterback's the most popular guy in town, right? Because whenever the starting quarterback sucks, boo, put the other guy in, boo. Well, I think that's kind of what they're doing here, right? Where it's like they want to have this bill that's, they want to have their cake and eat it too. As long as this bill doesn't get passed, it's perfect, right? As long as whatever policy you're claiming you're going to pass, as long as whatever you say you're going to fund, until it actually happens, it is perfect. In concept, it's immaculate. There's nothing wrong with it. The second it gets signed into being a bill and enters the real world, the wrinkles are going to show. The cracks are going to start forming. It's no longer perfect. So the best time is that middle time when it is still perfect in conception. Like conceptually, everything will work beautifully. But it isn't real yet, so it can't fail. It can only be this potential for everything to be better. And that isn't an awful spot for the government to be in. Especially if all of the ire and all of the blame is directed at 2 senators. Right? Because also, do you know who loves this? The Republicans love this. Like whenever Bernie Sanders comes out and says, there's 2 senators running the country. Yeah, you're right. The other 48 don't exist, do they? Like what? It's basically, and again, I think it comes from this idea that the Democrats and Republicans view each other as completely illegitimate entities that shouldn't exist. But yeah, it's like there's no pressure on any Republicans to defect. It's like they don't exist. Works for them. No, their constituents want to vote on this stuff. And then they have no pressure to, because they don't exist. There's only 2 senators. So the other ones can just say, yeah, man. Yeah, man. Don't put any pressure on us. Don't turn any screws on us. We don't even exist. Oh yeah, dude, everyone's already on a watch list. But the good news is, or the bad news, I guess if you're on an FBI watch list, that means you probably are actually going to commit a terrorist act. But if you're on an FBI watch list, it also means they're going to let you do it. So, like the FBI watch list is kind of like it's like a scouting for the FBI, you know? They're the ones that are like they're the ones that are kind of like they're like looking. They're like, do you think he'll do it? You think he'll actually do it? Yeah, I think he'll do it. Yeah. All right, that's the one. That's what that is, you know? Oh, dude, Apple, if you have an iPhone, Apple already monitors all your photos and like text and stuff and runs it across Oh, it's everything. YouTube's Google. Dude, they listen to you speak. They know more about you than you know. Here's the thing. You might think you're pretty smart, but you're only a human being. A computer can distill you down into a file and know more about you. It can predict you. It's one of the really scary things is human beings we're complicated, but we're not so complicated that machines would not be able to learn how to individually manipulate you emotionally. You know what I mean? Like, there's nothing that says we cannot develop AI or machine learning that can break down your emotional profile and just press your buttons. Just ride you, you know? Make you wherever you want to do. And you won't even know it's a bot. You think it's a human being on the other end. And they would just perfectly, every insecurity, every weak spot, every little, they would just bam, 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 bam. Imagine that. Imagine how terrifying that would be, right? Like, it's scary, but they can do that. It's weird, you know? Kind of freaks me out a little bit to think about the fact that, we don't know everything about it. Like, nobody knows everything, right? But a computer can look at just how you respond to certain events and pick up things we couldn't pick up. Like, how many people have noticed that? Let's wrap back to politics. How many people have noticed there's certain things in politics that just piss you off more than anything else? When certain people have certain positions or say certain things, it just sets you off. And you can't really put your finger on why. But it's not even like the specific guy or the specific girl or the specific policy or the specific thing. Some stuff sets you off. Computers will just find that shit, man. And again, to bring it back towards politics, that's probably going to be one of the best places to use it, is in finding ways to make you angry so you vote for X or vote against Y. Right? Which I think is what Facebook's actually being accused of. I think Facebook is being accused of figuring out what pisses people off so it could show them political content that would piss them off to motivate them into taking action. Because that is probably, like, again, it's probably a lot easier to get somebody to vote for you if you just piss them off than it is to explain how the outcomes will be preferential to them, right? Hey, we're going to make things better for you. Oh, look at these people. You know? And so it's I think it's one of the reasons why it's so important with politics in particular. There's not a lot of stuff that I kind of assert as being actually legitimately important and not just my perspective, but I will assert this is legitimately important. Being able to control your emotions when political discussions come up, and when you're talking about political ideas is like the most important thing. As soon as you lose yourself emotionally, you're everybody's fool. You know? They can just make you. And here's the thing, right? And this happens, by the way. I'm not going to get into the specifics, but this happens. There will be a thing, an event, an incident. Somebody will say something, they'll do something, right? And people will find the way to present it to you that makes you the most angry. And you will be angry, maybe resentful, maybe hateful, maybe demand punitive action, right? Then additional information will come out that's not so targeted at you emotionally, and it's more like the facts, and you'll realize you're being misled a bit. You'll realize what you were told wasn't really actually 100% the case, and that was only kind of what happened. But then you get to that kind of sunk cost point, right? Do I admit I was led astray and made a fool of, or do I dig in? Do I just insist that no, that is what happened. I was not fooled. You can't fool me, right? What's the reaction? The healthy reaction, I would say, is to admit, all right, they pulled a fast one on me, right? They tricked me. They told me it was this, but then the real information came out, and it wasn't really that at all. And so now I can admit that I was foolish, and I got a little bit wound up, and I was angry about something that maybe I really shouldn't have been that angry about. Or you can dig in and insist that, no, I should be double angry. And it's like, I would say finding, having that little bit of humility to be like, they got me. They got me. They told me something that wasn't true, but because it emotionally resonated with me in a certain way, I just jumped on it. And you have to be able to say, okay, they got me. These people are paid like six figures. Some of them more, some of them less. They literally, like, when you're thinking about like, oh man, I gotta get like my oil change on my car tomorrow, and oh god, do I have to get gas before work in the morning? Well, you're thinking that. These people are thinking, how do I manipulate people and mislead them? And so when somebody who spends their entire day trying to mislead you, and then they behave dishonestly, you can't take it personal when you get tricked, right? Right? A little bit, just shame on me. Shame me for getting fooled, but you can't like be like, you can't let it be like an affront to like your intelligence as a person, all right? These people have a job. These people know what they're doing. They're good at their job. And their job is to make you feel a certain way regardless of the facts. You can't hate them for it. You got to just recognize and accept it. They got me. They got me. But I'm not going to let you can't let them turn you into an emotional, crazy person when it comes to politics. That's what they want to do. You have to just be like, that, no, I'm not going to be angry at that. I know it was framed to me in a way where I should be angry, but the facts are I shouldn't be angry about this. And it's hard, man. It's really hard, but it's just that's what I don't know. I guess just again, I don't actually assert a lot of things as actually being. I don't prescribe things, but it's one of the few things I will prescribe as far as Americans and politics is people have to understand that these infrastructures that exist to mislead you and trick you, they're massive. Like, you have 24 hours in a day. There's 1,500 hours per day being concentrated to manipulate you on the internet, right? And you have to understand you're not always going to win that battle. Sometimes they're going to get you, right? Sometimes the fact that there's more man hours than you have hours in a day being concentrated at you and other people to manipulate and mislead, it gets through. And, but I just feel like there's too many people that they don't want to admit that. They don't want to admit that they allowed themselves to kind of get tricked. They allowed themselves to become somebody's fool. And it bothers them. It's an ego thing, Because who wants to think they're somebody's fool, No one. Everyone wants to think they're smart. So, you have to understand, it's not even about intelligence. It's like, I legitimately think it's about just, there's the amount of hours in the day that you have is not enough for you to live your life and be able to actually be immune to this stuff. So you have to just take a deep breath. And here's the thing. If you do act emotionally, You do go on Twitter, you say some stuff, you say some crazy stuff, you yell at someone, you get all huffy and puffy. You have to be able to forgive yourself after the fact. You have to be able to say, okay, damn, I really probably shouldn't have said that. I did kind of get ahead of myself on that one, but it's okay. It's okay. That's just from sitting on the sidelines, not interacting with politics at all for like 6, 7, 8 months. It's the one thing I've seen is that people got to understand you're being tricked, and if they trick you, it's okay. It's not the end of the world. Just move on. Just move on. Exactly. Grace and tolerance. There we go. We are all human and fallible. We need to give each other the benefit. Again, the reason why I talk about Andrew Yang and follow him, it's not because I think he's the most correct human being who has ever lived. I would just say, like, temperamentally and kind of like this philosophical approach to politics, I seem to very, very often end up with Andrew Yang in the sense that it's like this like deeply entrenched ideological nonsense isn't helping. And I see Andrew Yang as one of the major players. Because again, people want to say his policies aren't perfect. They're some of them will fail, some won't work. Cool, man. I don't care. Have the outcome reflect that and we change it. If you don't try things, nothing gets done. Right? You have to try things. You have to measure outcomes. You cannot measure theoretical outcomes. You can only measure the outcomes when they happen. You know? And I think that is even more of a real thing when we talk about politics. Something like taxes is the ultimate example of that. There is the amount of taxes that someone's supposed to pay on paper and the amount of taxes they pay. Those numbers are the same sometimes and they're radically different others. And I don't think it's possible for governments to plan around how radically different that number can spike depending on who the person is. Like, I just don't, I don't see it happening. But it's the thing, the Wolf of Wall Street thing, right? The sell me this pen thing, right? You'll notice the sell me this pen thing, he didn't explain to them why it's the finest made pen, right? No, it's an emotional thing. Get them to feel like they need it. They want it. However you got to do it. And it's part of politics. It's all big. It's big. But the thing is, politics has always been a big manipulation game. It's just, I don't know. I believe the U.S. survived fine before the income tax because, I guess, as I was kind of pointing out, income taxing like that's very difficult to do. It's inefficient. It just doesn't work very well. Because if people are able to get around any part of the taxes, what it means is, like, it's like, imagine having a business and when you give somebody the bill, they independently haggle the bill and just pay. You know? Like, so it's like, oh, cool, I'm getting $500 from this guy. And it's like, why do they only get 110? I billed him for 500. And it's just like, I don't know, he only has to pay 110. It's like, what? And like, this rule, and this rule says if he puts this here, puts that here, and does this, he only pays 110. It's like, okay, but I was expecting the 500. Yeah, it's not coming. Like, imagine running a bit. You can't run anything that way. It's why the government is finding itself in positions where it's just raising taxes in the deficit, just flailing around, because they're chasing money that's just theoretical. And then what they'll do is they'll raise taxes, pat themselves on the back, and then the money won't come, and then they're like, oh crap, we got no money. It's like, yeah, you didn't. It's the same idea. It's the same thing with the stock market, right? You only gain or lose money when you sell the stock. Those taxes only generate revenue when they're paid. Like until the taxes are paid, they're nothing. So basically, governments have to just kind of use rough guesstimates, I would imagine. I don't know all of it, but I'm imagining realistically, yeah, you're using rough guesstimates, right? We're probably going to receive roughly about this much percentage of our actual tax bills going out, right? Like the actual tax money we're due, we have to plan ahead to receive some percentage of it without knowing what that percentage will be. Feels like an impossible way to run countries. It feels like a government that's going to find itself constantly in debt and raising its debt. Right? Or the same thing as a business. If every time your tire shop changed someone's tires, they just paid what they legally are allowed to pay, not what you bill them, you'd probably be in debt and go out of business. So it's like, I just don't know. That's why I'm firmly on board with finding different ways, finding ways of doing taxation that's easier for the government to track. Because the thing is, the government's going to tax people whether we like it or not. Like, there's literally no way to get around it. They're the government. They have guns. They have all institutional authority. They will get their tax money. Oh, yeah. No, that's the thing, too. A lot of people, like, nowadays, if the government wanted to oppress you, oh, my God. The government's not going to oppress you with troops on the ground. They're not going to oppress you with boots on your neck. Like, no, dude. They're going to oppress you. You're going to go to Wendy's, and they're just going to say your card's declined. You know? You're going to go to the DMV, and they're going to say, oh, sorry, I can't process any of your transactions. That's how they're going to oppress you. Because then, you know what? When you're just a homeless person on the street, the society trains us to ignore those people. It works perfectly for them. Right? Force you homeless, then everyone ignores you. Not their problem. Like, it's, you know, it's a rough world out there, man. People have crazy stuff they do, but yeah, I mean, exactly. That's what I'm saying. The government, that's how the government does it to people. They find ways to just, you know, and then, I mean, it's really scary to think about. It's one of the reasons why I am against. It's one of the reasons why I liked UBI. And again, I'm not married to one particular plan of UBI, and it has to be nothing. But the idea is, like, if I'm trying to think of a delicate way to phrase this. But basically, from the way I look at it, if there's an entity that feeds you and it clothes you and it educates you and it keeps you under a roof and it makes sure you have health care, that entity literally can snap its fingers and end your life by just denying you service. All they have to do is deny you services that you are not necessarily literally entitled to. And again, it's that. They press spacebar and you're gone. They press spacebar, you have no health care. They press spacebar, you have no bank account. They press spacebar, you can't buy food. Right? That's the scary thing. That like, you know? That's the thing. People might say, like, you know, like, oh, free college, free healthcare, nothing's free. Taxes go up. It's like, not for everyone, but nothing's free in the sense that what's given can be taken. It isn't yours. You're leasing it. You're leasing it for free at their discretion until they decide not anymore. No. Like, I have a question. How many people, let's say if America, asking chat, and please, like, I don't want people to, I'm just like, this is a legitimate question, I wonder. If the government, let's say we had a NHS. We had, you know, medical care that ran through, like, Medicare for all, whatever. Everybody's healthcare went through the government, right? If the government came out and it said that people that were part of the January 6th riot insurrection and anybody who associates with them will be denied government health care. People that organize anti-vax events denied government health care. Like, would that be something you'd support? You know, it's a real question. If we're going to talk about the government taking control of these things, we have to ask ourselves, when will we say it's okay for them to take those things from people? And from which people will we allow them to take it from? For me, I would say no one can have that. If the government gives it to you, they have no right to take it, even though they literally just can. But it's scary because, yeah, I appreciate that. You said you'd think about it. Just think about that. You would think about that. If the government came to you and said, we're taking those people's rights away, you'd be like, oh. I mean, it's real life. Like, it's tough. It's one of the scary things. Because here's the thing is, what side you stand on what issue changes depending on the issue and depending on, like, what time, what the period is, depending on how it affects you, right? So you might be on the right side almost always, where it's like, I don't care, take that stuff away from them. They don't deserve it. They're bad people. They're terrorists. They're this. Take it away from them. But then just one day, you're the terrorist. And you didn't move. You didn't have any different opinions. Things move around you. That's why it's always, I don't know, it's the thing that I've always been very, even with like a universal basic income, what scares me is that even if the government has no right to, turn that faucet off and throw you in the street, they'll do it anyway. And, what's even more concerning is I feel like a lot of people would be okay with it. Maybe not the majority. And it's not that these people are evil or bad people. It's just there would be no consensus. There would be a group of people who would say, yeah, good riddance. They don't deserve that. Right? And it's I don't know, it's concerning. I don't like it. It's one of my kind of, big concerns with any centralized program like that. Is that some bureaucrat, some person could literally be sitting at their desk one day, they get an email, terminate account 457, okay, 4578, terminate access, boom, done. That's all somebody did. Somebody just went terminate access, enter. They're just following their job. And now when you go to pay rent, you can't access your bank account. Like, what? Oh, yeah, it turns out that there was suspicious activity. They think you might be associated with anti-government groups, so you can't access your bank account anymore. Yeah, well, I mean, just because they already can do that doesn't mean I want to give them more power, right? Like, just because the government can, just boom. They can. You can literally wake up one morning, have a letter in your mailbox that just says you're not legally allowed to drive anymore until you pay us money or fight it in court. And those are your recourses. Pay them money or fight that in court. Even if it has literally nothing. What does treason have to do with single-payer healthcare? Why would a government provide services to people who are committing acts of treason against the government? That's why. If the government provides healthcare and ensures healthcare as a right, why would they provide that right to people who seek to destroy the government? Doesn't make much sense. I would say from the government's perspective, they would have every right to say those people will die on the street without healthcare. Because if they don't want it, they don't need it. Right? I don't think that's right, though. I think that's totally against the spirit of any universal social system. It's totally counter to the spirit to me that we decide who deserves it. But there are people on social media, there are people in the news, people in suits looking at a camera saying that we don't even have single-payer healthcare, and they're saying ER rooms should be denied from some people based on their life choices. Right? It's like, we're there now, man. Yeah, exactly. My point exactly. If you break the law, we strip you of your rights. And the thing is, when your rights extend to housing, healthcare, everything else, those are the rights that get stripped as well. Right? If you have these rights, but we have established if you go against society, we strip you of the rights, then we have to understand any right we give people is entirely contingent on, their standing in society. If someone were to do something that would make them, lower their social, make them like a social, deviant, break the laws, go against our social codes, then yeah, we take their rights away. It's just that, yeah, when those rights become, there's states that deny felons the right to vote. Right? Okay, so what if there were states that say, after you're out of jail, you no longer get the state, Medicare for all or NHS services, and instead they have a separate D tier for criminals where they can go. Right? If you think American citizens would not be, oh my God, dude, Americans are some of the most petty, vindictive people when it comes to stuff like this. They are, yeah, people that aren't them, I don't care, do whatever you want. Yeah, so what? They don't get their insulin anymore? Should have thought about that before they were drunk driving, huh? Huh, buddy? Huh? You could die without your insulin? Huh? You should have thought of that. Like, dude, I do not subscribe to that at all. Some people do. And that's what scares me. But I do not subscribe to that at all. Oh, what, you need your inhaler? Huh? Should have thought of that before you did that. Should have thought of that first. No. We either value life or we don't. Yeah. That's my perspective. A society values life and says that people are important, or it doesn't value life and says people are not important. There's no middle ground. You don't get to just speak out of both sides of your mouth on that one. You don't get to say everybody's entitled to X except people who do Y. It's not. If you believe everybody's entitled to something, that's where the sentence ends. If you don't believe, then the sentence either ends there or you don't believe that those are rights that extend to everybody. Card's not in Cuba, but he is on vacation now. So, no, Card's fine. Card is spending time with his lovely family. We're still just living in different states. And again, I'm going to be working to get him on a Zoom call so we can do a little Zoom show together. That way we can get both of us together again. So, I'm not saying that like dude, trust me. If the Republican Party in this country was trying to push for something to be nationalized, some service or right. Here we go. Let's say the Republicans did, let's say the Republican Party made it so social media platforms couldn't ban people, right? You can't ban people just being conservative, right? Those Republicans and those conservatives would 1,000,000% support, not every single one of them, but yet there would be people that would 1,000,000% support the banning of people they don't like off the internet, right? They would go the other way immediately. Right? It's easy to appear principled when your opposition is taking an unprincipled stance. All you have to do is oppose your opposition and you appear principled. It's very easy. Doesn't mean you actually have any principle behind that, though. It doesn't mean that you don't want to basically do functionally the exact same thing. You just want to be in charge, not them. I want to be denying people their rights, not them. Yeah. That's why the political extremes, they're a trap, man. That's my opinion. I'm not saying that's the way of the world. I'm not prescribing that as, but in my opinion, the extreme poles of politics, they're a trap. They're literally, it's bait. They put it out there to get, because again, the extremes you'll notice of both ends of politics are just flipping the chessboard and walking away. Well, you're not going to get any better at chess or win any chess matches if you do that. And they know that. So they're like, please, you're no threat to me when you're stomping away in a huff. You're a threat to me when you're sitting at the table playing the damn game. So they want people not playing the game. They want them stomping away in a huff. I hate this game. That's beautiful. Because you're threatening. You're dangerous when all of a sudden you make a move and they're like, ah, shit, this guy's learning. This guy realized last time when I made that move and he got mad and flipped the board over. Well, this time he stayed and made the counter move, and now I'm shitting myself because he's supposed to not be good at this. All right? What are my thoughts on the supply shortage? I don't trust that it's organic, I guess. Right? It's easy to manufacture things like that. I will say one thing, though. I do wonder, and I've seen largely more right-wing people levy this thing, so I haven't looked into it all the way to see if there is legitimacy to it. However, I do believe a lot of the supply, the chain of supply stuff, I do believe that falls under the Secretary of Transportation's a little bit. And the Secretary of Transportation, I believe, has been, it's not AWOL, he's with leave. I think he's on maternity leave. It's everyone's favorite, Pete Buttigieg. He would be the person who I think would be one of the point people on addressing that. And I think he's not quite, he's on paternity leave. And to be honest, I don't think Pete would be that healthy. I remember when Pete said, I'm so excited to be the transportation guy. I love trains and board games. And it was just like, fuck. It's like, are you fucking kidding me, man? You like trains and board games? Well, hopefully we don't have to actually do anything. Oh, there's massive supply line issues. Oh, and that's something you can help with. Oh, and you've just... I don't want to sound like insensitive, but neither him or his husband actually delivered the child. They adopted him, I'm assuming. Right? So it's like, what? No one's physically recovering at home. Why can't he do his job? Like, I understand if someone like physically delivered a child and they're at home and they're recovering and you need to be there for them. Right? But that's actually, I guess, kind of like one of the advantages to like being a same-sex couple like that, especially, both male, where neither of them actually delivered the child, is there isn't that physical recovery portion, I'd imagine. Nor like the postpartum or any of that stuff. So you would imagine he'd be in a kind of fortuitous situation to get back to work sooner, right? Like, it's just, So it makes me wonder, is he just not taking this that serious? Does he feel like he really doesn't have that much he could do to help? Because he's not really... I mean, everybody knew Pete Buttigieg wasn't really the right person for this job. I mean, this was so obviously a... Biden just knighted him. I mean, like, this wasn't like he was, like, the perfect person. Yeah, they adopted twins, I'm not saying twins, like, aren't, like... I'm not saying that, like, he should be at work the next day. I'm just saying it's been a while now, and it seems like he's needed. So maybe he'd be able to leverage that fact to get back to work a little bit sooner. That's all I'm saying, right? Like, just, like, a little bit sooner. Like, I'm not saying he should have been at work 5 weeks ago. But, like, why not just get there, like, why not say, hey, look, Chas, I need you to watch the kids for a little bit. I'm the Secretary of Transportation, and the country's having transportation issues. And again, I'm not, like, slamming the guy. It is a little bit weird where it's, like, he's needed at work. I understand you're needed at home as well, but it's, like, I don't know. Exactly. Or do the opposite. For a job like that, for a position like that, why not say... Take the year off, Pete, and appoint a replacement. I'd be fine with that. If Pete was like, like we have twins, holidays are coming up, it's going to be tough for me to work. Anyway, I can have someone work maybe for the, the next 10, 11 months so I can come back in later. I don't know. It just feels weird that it's just like, oh, we are having transportation issues, but, Pete's got bigger issues, so... Yeah, I don't even think it's... Because, by the way, this wouldn't be his fault anyway. You know what I mean? Ultimately, he answers to someone, and whoever he answers to told him, go ahead, buddy, take some time off. All the time you need. Right? So, either way, it's not his fault. It's just, it's not like he has, like, someone in the hospital still. I called the stream that because... There's a long Twitter thread just joking about the fact that Andrew Yang is being like, well, you're right. Being on leave doesn't make him any less competent. The fact that from the beginning there was questions about why Pete Buttigieg is given this role is what makes him less competent. You know what I mean? It's like from the start, people were like, why is Pete? Is it just because Pete dropped out and endorsed Biden and Biden promised him something? Because, like, literally, Pete Buttigieg said he loves trains, and, like, he proposed to his husband on a train or some weird shit like that. Like, it was never like, oh, okay, that makes sense. It was always like, oh, no, Biden's giving his boy a job, And that's why I think it just compounds when you look at, now people actually are kind of asking, like, well, wait a minute, where'd he go? And then he's not there. You know what I mean? So it's like, and again, I'm not like trying to like blame Pete and say it's his fault and slam him. I'm just saying it's not the best look. But again, ultimately, it's not his fault either. He has a boss. He reports to someone, whoever he reports to, who's just like, go ahead, man. Doesn't matter. Like, you can't blame people for being put into positions that maybe they're not the, ideal person to be in. you could say it's a little bit their fault for accepting it, but a lot of people do think they're going to be able to rise up, and a lot of people think, hey, if they believe in me, I got to, if someone believes in me and is giving me the shot, I got to at least try. So I don't blame people for doing that. It's a bad look, Again, dude, if I was the manager of an Arby's and I took the week off and every day there was a line around the block, it'd be a bad look on me. It'd be like, wow, you're just gone, huh? Yeah, nothing's working at the Arby's, but you're gone. You're not there. So what do you care? Like fair or not, it's just the way it works. Like if you're given like the secretary of X job and the X isn't doing so hot, I mean, like, who else? like Pete didn't have this like thrusted upon him, right? Pete, he gets the placard, he gets the office, he gets the maternity leave when he wants it, he gets to be Mr. Big Shot. It's like all not him in particular, but all these people. It's like when like people like attack Congress people and senators on their job and say you're doing a bad job. You are not doing what we want you to do. And people will be like, well, it's unfair. It's like, dude, they are called senator. They are called congressperson, all right? They have staff. They have people that work under them. They have a fancy door. They got a fancy desk, okay? They're not like, this wasn't thrusted upon them. They get something out of this, so when they screw up, they are definitely there to be criticized. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, dude, if you want to be Mr. Big Shot, same thing, again, a little sports reference, but it's the same thing when umpires and referees, people just yelling in their face. It's like, look, dude, you want to be Mr. Umpire, Mr. Referee, standing there making all the calls? Well, guess what? Sometimes the people you're making the calls on aren't going to love it. And if you want to take in the good of being able to have the best seat in the house every game, you're going to have to deal with the bad of dealing with pissed off coaches. Same thing, if you're the secretary of X, hey, man, that's cool. You get paid. You have a title. Seriously, offices. You got staff. You got people. You got minions who do things for you. Like it's not all bad. So when you screw up and get criticized for it, it's not like, oh my God, why are you doing this? It's like that's what comes with the job, man. That's why your name's on the door. Because you matter enough for if things to go wrong, we'll wonder what's going on. And it's not particular to him. It's in all of politics. But for some reason, media runs out and defends these people like, oh my God, it's so unfair. Unfair? Quit. If you don't want people criticizing you in public, quit your public-facing job that serves the public. Like, Jesus, this should never be a conversation, yet somehow the media always is making this argument. Well, it's unfair. It's unfair. Get out of here, unfair. Quit. If it's so unfair, quit. Someone else will take the unfair job tomorrow. That's how unfair it is. And by the way, it's so unfair, they won't quit because they know someone's taking that job in 10 seconds if they quit. Because it really isn't that unfair to be criticized for not serving the public when that's your job. I got the total fair criticism. And it just drives me crazy, these politicians. Oh my God, I can't believe it. Look how they're talking to these Congress people and these senators. Wow, they should quit then. Because that's kind of part of the job. Like, if you're going to rule over us, well, we're going to let you know what we think about it. And if that's not okay with you, maybe you shouldn't be in that position. It's like, but for whatever reason, well, I know why. It's like I think one of the issues in it, like, I guess honestly, man, I'm gonna wrap here. I went longer than I thought, mostly because I do love hanging out with you guys and talking. Like, seriously, I do this all day. It's just starting to get hot, and I do need to eat a little bit. But getting paid to complain and not show up. Well, I don't think Pete's like complaining, but it's. I'm not talking specifically about Pete being on leave right now. Again, it's not a great look to be on leave and all hell's breaking loose in your department. But whatever. That aside, you'll see a lot of the times, like with Congress people and senators and stuff. Like, honestly, it is where I'm on the fence with that whole thing with Senator Sinema. Yeah, where they followed her into the bathroom and like filmed her and stuff. That's where I'm on the fence. Well, they believe they rule over us. That's how they look at it. I'm not saying they should or they do, but that's how they look at it. But on one part, it's like, yeah, that is part of, like, I guess the way, like, like that particular incident when they followed the senator into the bathroom, yelling at her, and I feel like as a senator, you do have to understand that is part of your job. But then I also feel like it's not necessarily that particular method probably shouldn't be encouraged by people. But yeah, it's part of the job, man. If you want to be Mrs. Senator, you want to fly around in the planes, you want to be, jet setting around the country, making the big calls, making the big decisions, like you have to, you just have to expect that sometimes other stuff will happen. I don't necessarily love seeing people cheerlead that method, Exactly. I don't think they should have done that. And I don't think there should be people in the media saying, well, good on them. I think that there is on a human to human level, some boundaries that should be respected. But just, that's why it is tricky though. Because on the inverse, like dealing with people who are unpredictable and behaving irrationally and maybe intruding on your personal space and your privacy is part of what comes with representing them in the government. It doesn't make them just or right. It's not that they should be defended for it. But at the same time, like, people acting a fool because they're mad at you is what comes with being their senator. Like, it's the package. It's not all good. I think that's it. It's like there's people that act like this is supposed to be the cushiest, easiest, best job ever. And if anything gets in the way of it being just like the cushiest, easiest job ever, then like something wrong happened. It's like, no, man, it's supposed to be a hard job. It's easy because we let you get away with it being easy, but it's not supposed to be easy. Oh yeah, that's what I mean. It's actually the reason why I brought up that particular instance was because it is tricky, right? It is tough. Like, on one hand, I feel like you shouldn't treat people that way, like regardless of who they are and what they did. But on the other end, if you are going to be, like I said, if you're going to be Mr. or Mrs. Big Shot, you can't just assert you are above that ever happening to you. It's part of it, man. You're in people's lives. You're in the public. Sometimes people will do things that are not good, aren't good looks on them, are not like immoral things, but it is part of the package, right? I mean, it's like, should politicians need bodyguards? No. Do they? Yeah. Do politicians get offended when they have bodyguards? Well, some of them probably not. No, they probably understand. They probably don't love it, but they get it. But also, I mean, and then I guess, and again, like my last thing I'll say, particularly about the cinema thing, I don't know her that well. Like, I wasn't know her personal, but I haven't followed her career forever. The little bit I know about her, she seems like the kind of person that will actually, literally, she was probably just trying to get away. I mean, but still, though, I would say if someone was trying to get away from me and they ran into a bathroom, I'd probably take that as like, all right, fine, go hide in the bathroom. Oh, wait, like, there's one door in, one door out in most bathrooms, Like, you can just trap them in there without actually going in. But again, I'm not going to, go piece by piece and assign X amount of blame to X amount of people, right? People do crazy stuff sometimes. Like, it's like, well, no, but like, just because people should treat people one another doesn't mean that you get to say that everybody has to act rationally around me all the time. Sometimes they won't, and you have to understand it's part of life, It doesn't make them right for doing it. But that's also where grace and tolerance come in, speaking of, right? We are all human and fallible, and we need to give each other the benefit of the doubt, right? So instead of being like, you're evil trash people, you have to be like, yeah, they're probably pissed off. I don't think they should have done what they did, but they're probably pissed off when they did it. Still believe it was wrong to have done, but like when you're in a position where you have control over people's lives, or at least they think you have control over their lives, they're gonna act out. And you have to be able to, approach that with grace and tolerance. You have to understand, okay, I am the senator here, and you are the constituent just yelling and begging, right? But there's the power dynamic there that you have to understand. There's, what is this? Clemency, the word I'm looking for, right? Like there's certain understanding you have to have this understanding of like, well, no, even then, you shouldn't treat them that way. But when you're a politician, you are Your job puts you exactly. People should not yell and scream at umpires. People should. Baseball coaches shouldn't kick dirt on umpires and say every awful word about them. But in a baseball game, it's gonna happen, right? And just part of life is you have to understand that. Look, I understand emotions are high because of what we were doing and what's at stake. You flew off the handle a bit, made a mistake. I understand, right? I think politicians should be able to do that. They shouldn't be punitive. Shouldn't be, how dare you do that to me? Should be, look, man, I think, that's wrong, but I understand that you were upset. I'm not saying it's bad or it's good. What I'm saying is people will act out and people will make mistakes. And especially when you're in a position of power, like a government official, like a senator, it is in those moments that you are given the choice. You can either act with grace and tolerance, and you can say, I know you acted out and did something you shouldn't have done and invaded privacy or whatever it was. But, I am also literally the bigger person here in a way, right? I'm the senator. I'm the one with institutional control. And I'm going to use that to forgive you. And say, I understand why you were upset, but you shouldn't have done what you did. You maintain both equally. It's just through forgiveness, you can move on. Through grace and tolerance, you move on. But it's just, you can accept that should not have happened, but then approach it with grace. Shouldn't have happened, but look, I understand you felt the way you did. Now let's move on together. I'm not going to punish you for this. I'm not going to take it out against you. Do it again, maybe, right? Fuck around, find out. But, it's part of what makes, ideally politicians are supposed to be leaders. That's what makes a leader, right? A follower, someone who's not a leader, someone who's not supposed to be in front of people, somebody mistreats them, slights them, you're dead to me. I'm going to do everything I can to ruin you. Yeah, those people that are not leaders. People that are leaders are failed or have someone do something wrong to them, and they use that as an opportunity to lead, to set an example, to say, I forgive you, to say, I don't approve of what you did, but I understand where it came from. And I'm still not going to change my vote. And you can follow me into the bathroom 1,000,000 times, and I'll say you shouldn't do it every time, and I'm not going to vote, right? But still, I am the bigger person here with institutional authority and power. I am the one holding no on my vote. All you're doing is begging. In that situation, you really should be able to say, look, you're forgiven. It was wrong, but I forgive you. It's tough stuff, man. Most people don't do it, especially in politics. Most politics are punitive, which I hate so much because it's just a cycle. It's a cycle that never ends. Oh, hey. Trumper for Yang podcast. What's up? I haven't seen you in a while. So you guys are back? Well, I'm back. I'm trying to get Cardin back. That's what Cardin is. And I talked a little bit about the New York City run, and then I did bring up a little bit of the Curtis Sliwa UBI program that we negotiated. I know that you guys negotiated with them. 14 million profit from a GOP. Very interesting. I have to look more into it, though. I seriously kind of took a hiatus from politics. I would just lurk on Twitter for the last 6, 7, 8 months, but a little bit. Yeah. But anyway, so that's it. I'm going to be getting off in a few minutes here. Any last questions you guys have? Again, it was just great to get back on again. Great to see you guys all in chat and talk with you. A lot of fun. Actually, I think originally I actually had this set to go private, but I think I'll leave it up for a little bit after. I don't think I can change that from here. So I'll change it after the fact. Cool. But yeah, so thank you everyone. Once again, thank you everyone for showing up and being here today. I always love talking to you guys, seeing what's going on. Oh, I know nothing about crypto, unfortunately. My crypto, the way I look at crypto is this. It's kind of like how I said before, where it's like, people are like, imagine if you bought Amazon back in 2013 or whatever it went public, right? It's like, that's why I feel like if you bought crypto when crypto was played out and peaking in the December of 2016, like Bitcoin, if you bought Bitcoin when Bitcoin crashed 3 years ago, I think you'd be up 60% today. So it's like, It's one of those things, right? I don't know a lot about it, but I do know that it does seem to be growing. I am very skeptical of NFTs, though. I'm not as skeptical of the technology as I am of the current application. If that makes sense. Right? Like, there's too much stuff I see in the crypto world where it's like the crypto NFT world. I'm a little bit apprehensive on because it seems to be a lot of people that are like, hey, everybody should go out and do X. And then like the part they don't quite say is, if you do X, I literally financially gain now. And it's like, so I'm always a little bit on the edge, you know? Where it's like, you know, it's like people that are like, oh, you gotta get in on the NFT craze. You gotta get in. They're also valuable. It's like those people all hold on NFT and need people to get in for it to go up. And it's like, ugh, I don't like that. The idea of using NFTs for stuff like digital art, or even like people using, like, there's a lot of people that are like buying like what $80,000 Twitter avatars with NFTs. I think using that kind of technology and like, I'm not saying I know how it works in and out, but I'm saying using kind of that sort of technology to maybe have like a easier way of verifying accounts on social media platforms and stuff, verifying pictures, verifying, you know, account, like that is my account with myself without having to have manual verifications everywhere. You can like literally prove ownership of the account in ways like that. I think that's cool and smart. As a purely speculative market, it's creepy to me. It's creepy to me, and it feels like a lot of the people really pushing it literally financially gain from pushing it. Like, it's, you know what I mean? Even if it is totally pure motives. I'm not trying to like say they're all like, you know, scammers. It's tough forever, right? It's just whenever anyone gives you that deal, you should do this. This is a great idea. It's like, yeah, but you make money if I do that. And it's like, yeah, but it's tough. Anyway, I'll ramble forever otherwise. I made a video about the 4 party for. Oh yeah, I saw a little about that. I will definitely check into that more. And yes, I'll be doing more streaming. I think we'll do another stream tomorrow. Just for the night. Do a couple stream. I'm gonna be doing some more streaming for a little bit. Just to get some of my stuff here dialed in. I want to change my lights. I want to change the audio. So I just want to kind of get in front of camera a little bit. And then yeah, we're gonna be doing some more video content and more other stuff. It's gonna be a little bit on the what is it? I mean, it'll be political content, but just, you know, like I said, I've had a bit of a falling out with all of American politics, so I'll be talking about certain bits that interest me. A lot of the same stuff as before. And yeah, next year I can't promise tomorrow because my internet's been going in and out. And the internet guy comes tomorrow morning, but probably tomorrow I'm planning. I wanted to do a couple of these next few days where I have time, and then after that, I might just do a couple drop in here and there. Again, really kind of just trying to. One, just kind of get back in the swing of things, you know what I mean? It's been a while since I've sat in front of a camera with a mic in front of my face like this. Catch up on everything I've missed, and and then just dial in my settings and my stuff. I really haven't really done a lot of recording and stuff since I moved here, so it takes some time. I'm not sure about the same time because I'm a little... I'm still moving around with like I said, my internet's like randomly going in and out. That's why I kind of figured my internet would crash by now, and it hasn't. And the guy comes tomorrow to get it checked out. I legitimately think that I know there's at least one cat that like walks. It's not even like a wild cat. It like lives with my neighbors, but it'll like roam around the apartment complex I live in. Last time they came out, they had to plug in a cable. I legitimately think like that cat or a dog or something is like getting around where the cables are and like knocking them loose. But whatever. But yeah, around the same time, afternoon-ish. I was talking about earlier or later. I'll find some other topic to talk about. Again, I'm catching up with Andrew Yang, learning more about Yang. But I mean, there's so much going on with just general politics, and I really am trying to stay out of a lot of it because some of it's just like. Yeah. Some of the stuff going on, man. Talk about lose conversations, huh? But yeah. But either way, seriously, I've said this before, but I really mean it. I really appreciate all you guys being here, coming back. Seriously, I honestly didn't expect like very many people at all at first because it's been so long. So I really do appreciate it. Really am happy to have you guys back here. And again, I am going to be doing more stuff. I've said it before, but now I got some time put aside, and it's going to be yeah. And speaking of, last little segue, how is Carden? Carden's doing great. He's busy as ever. But I am gonna hassle him and get him on the show. It'll be a Zoom call, but I'll get him on. We have to talk about Andrew Yang and where he's going. So this is it, though. I'm leaving for real. Either way, I'm so happy to be back to you guys. It was a lot of fun. It was great. It seems like Andrew Yang has another wild ride with his forward party, but hey, a lot more fun than the oh man, I forgot the name of the Romeo and Juliet families that govern ourselves right now, right? The Montesquieu's and the Capulets, something like that. I know I got them wrong, but still, you know what I mean? It's a lot more fun following people that aren't them. So take care. Hope you guys all have a great Saturday night. And again, if you want to join, I will be on sometime around, afternoon Pacific time tomorrow afternoon as well. So thank you guys all very much, and I'll see you tomorrow.